Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
This podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Head there to check out exclusive podcasts like Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, and tons more.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, a miserable pig-field ordeal. I'm one of your hosts, the fuzzy pee-pee person, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with you today, as always?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and after this, we're headed to Bloaty's Pizza Hog.
And this month's episode is all about the Invader ZIM episodes Bad Bad Rubber Piggy and Hamstergeddon.
Take a good look, children. It will prepare you for your adult lives in our nightmarish corporate system.
Yes, this episode today is brought to you by one of our wonderful patrons at the top tier level. Isn't that correct, Henry?
Yes, this was chosen by ToonJay, who previously picked the Kim Possible episode, and Jason's reasoning was, I remember seeing the premiere of the show alongside The Fairly Odd Parents. I liked it enough at the time, but I was a passive viewer. I didn't engage with it like I did Fairly Odd Parents or other Nicktoons back then. I think I was just too young to fully appreciate these shows' sense of humor. I was 4. I was, however...
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I know. I was, however, a religious viewer of Nick Friday night, so I did manage to see most of the episodes when they first premiered. It wasn't until 2010 where I rediscovered the show again, where I truly got to appreciate the show's humor. Now it's in my top 5 favorite Nicktoons. So... wow, he's the exact example that came up in the history of like, oh, this isn't who the show is for, and this is why Nick canceled the show.
It was definitely for me at the time, absolutely. Not a child, by the way.
No, it was made for people entering their 20s.
Yes.
Like, that is who it was made for. I'm glad ToonJay picked this because it was a favorite of me and Bob's growing up too, that also is interesting to deal with now with 2023 eyes, and as you can see, its long legacy for good and ill of Invader ZIM.
Very true. I was not a day one viewer of this, so I graduated from high school in 2000. I took a semester off. I entered college in spring of 2001, and that's when I met a lot of new friends through my anime club, friends I still talk to today and play games with every week. And they told me, I believe it was my friends Nick and Chris who were on this podcast for, I believe, the Case Closed episode.
Yeah.
I think they were the ones who told me, have you seen Invader ZIM? It's this really fucked up cartoon on Nickelodeon. And I had kind of written off Nicktoons because I dipped into SpongeBob. This is right before the SpongeBob explosion in popularity.
After 9/11.
Yes, after 9/11. 9/11 will come up a lot on this podcast, by the way. So I dipped into SpongeBob. I was like, I kind of like the vibes, but it's not for me. But this got me into watching Nicktoons again, and I was on board with, I think, like the 3rd or 4th airing of ZIM, up until it kind of mysteriously went away after a certain day in history.
Right.
Yes. So that's my experience, and, being on the ground floor for it was interesting. Now it's slightly embarrassing, and this is such an of its time piece of comedy, for good and for ill.
Yeah, it is really dated in that way. I didn't watch the March 2001 premiere, but I definitely watched it within the first month or two of that premiere. It was not because I loved the show's creator, but it was because MST3K Info told me that Frank Conniff, TV's Frank, was working on the show. So I was like, oh, I got to see the new show by TV's Frank.
I think that was part of it for me, too. And also, my friends, Nick and Chris, who told me about this, they had read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and they were telling me, oh, he made this really fucked up comic, too. Can you believe they let him make a cartoon?
It is pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, the part of the fun was knowing that the creator of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac was making a Nicktoons show. But yeah, me and you were similar in that way too, that we had friends who would tell you to read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, but every time I opened it up, I kind of just bounced off it because it was like, all right, it's twisted and fucked up and there's murder all the time. And I just wasn't goth enough for it.
Yeah, that was exactly my take too. I thought it was kind of cringy, or whatever word you used in 2001 when I finally got around to reading it. Not for me. And that is very a product of its time. It's like, oh, the trench coat wearing killer, the cool guy.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, also Columbine's going to come up a bit on this podcast too.
all the hits from our early adulthood.
As well, it's dark rando bacon humor, epic for the win tacos comedy. Like, everybody did it afterwards.
Yeah.
And I am so sick of it because it was done by a lot of people who are not as funny as the people who made Invader ZIM.
At the time, though, and this is like, it sounds silly now, but this really captured internet humor of this era, like burgeoning something awful style humor, and down to, the funny random bacon aspect, and also the anime influence of it as well. This is a very anime influenced show.
For sure, yeah. And it's like even down to the casting. And also it's full of just characters screaming all the time, which is so fun. But also the way of talking of like, ooh, yes, I must have this. Yes, ooh, yeah. Like, it's just like, all right. I when I hear it now, I'm like, everybody wrote a funny character to talk this way. And I'm just so fucking sick of it and other things.
Using lots of big funny words, yeah. And this is a very pre-9/11, very Gen X show in that a lot of the mission statement is like, everybody is so stupid. This country sucks so much. Yuck. Our culture is disease. And then 9/11 happens and it's like, oh no, it's actually very good, waving a tiny flag around.
I know, yes, yeah, this is so much about how like, it is the Gen X suburbanite view of like, man, fuck everybody. Like, everybody's cruel and mean. Also, it is like the clip I used at the start there. It is a very like Fight Clubby ethos too, of like, oh, you're gonna have to work in this thing forever. It's like that was the hell they feared, not having a job.
It's about a world that is too worthless to be conquered or saved, essentially,
with no enemies left post Cold War. Yeah, and also this is a show by like Gen X, or even in some cases elder millennials who were very young when the show started, talking about the things they grew up with and that they'd never seen parodied on TV before. And again, because geek culture is so goddamn mainstream now, all the stuff in this that was like, well, nobody referenced this then, everybody references these things now. Like, every single show has done a Terminator TV episode, just like the one we're doing today.
They did an episode, we're not covering it, but they did an episode of Invader ZIM in which it was the characters waiting in line for a video game system launch.
ToonJay was very nice and let me pick one of the two, which was Bad Rubber Piggy. But Game Slave 2, which feels weird to say that word now, Game Slave 2 was my second pick because the GBA had just come out and the GameCube was about to come out. When I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember standing in line to buy games that I'd never seen that in a thing before. The way the Iggins character is talking to her in line of like, yeah, I imported the one from Japan already, but the game's a little different in America. And I was like, oh my God.
Can they do this?
The Gaz was a badass gamer chick, man, and she's really cynical and goth. Isn't she cool?
She was not an original character, but I saw that style of character a lot after this, especially on The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Mandy's basically a little Gaz.
And Billy, also voiced by Richard Horvitz.
Yes.
Too. Yeah.
I mean, I did enjoy that, but it felt like a less mean Invader ZIM in terms of its style.
And, I think, too, now that I watch it, I actually kind of like the feel of PG edge with the creator's work, because I think when he can go fully R-rated, it's not as good. I kind of like him fenced in by children's content.
Yeah, I like the boundaries of this show. I don't know what the Netflix movie does, if it's any edgier, but if characters were bleeding out on screen and heads were exploding, it wouldn't be as fun. It feels fun that they're pushing the edges of a kid's cartoon of this era.
I think Florpus goes, the movie from 2019, it goes ever so slightly farther, but it is not like an R-rated movie. Like, I think maybe they learned from the adult cartoon party shit that Ren and Stimpy, that you don't need to go hard R, and you actually lose a lot when you do that in it. No, it's actually a really good comeback movie. It was right up there in quality with the Rocco movie as well.
And I think those were two things that Nickelodeon said, oh, hey, make these. And then when they were done, Nickelodeon was like, no, put them somewhere else. No,
I know.
Put them online or something.
Everybody thinks Warner is the stuff going on currently with streaming is like a new thing, but it is actually a very cyclical thing in the animation business. So cyclical that it happened in Invader ZIM twice. And also last thing in the preamble too that made me like it less. Bob, you pointed out the very obvious fact that every webcomic has a Bender in it, but they also have a Gur. It's kind of like Bender and Gur together.
Absolutely. It's the cruelty towards humanity of Bender with the taco bacon zombie ninja style of Gur.
It's just like a screaming idiot who just loves consumption of like epic foods like bacon and tacos, pizza, all that stuff. Yeah. But I also do want to really thank ToonJay for directing me to a real boon for researching this, because there are a lot of great interviews with Jhonen Vasquez out there, some great historical lookbacks at it. But writer for the show, Eric Trueheart, who wrote the 2 episodes we're covering here, in 2019, he put out a book of his scripts that also is a really cool timeline of his time working on the entire original run of the series that gave a lot of background and interesting stories about it, which also is really helpful because since Invader ZIM was big at the time when the internet was relatively new, a lot of bullshit was said about like, oh, this is why it got canceled. That is fully a lie that he totally addresses in the book.
What is the book called?
It's a very epic Invader ZIM type title.
Just in case anyone wants to look it up.
Sorry, it is The Medium-Sized Book of ZIM Scripts, Volume 1, Pigs and Waffles, The Stories, and the Stories Behind the Stories of Your Favorite Invader by Eric Trueheart.
Okay, now I know why you didn't want to say it.
Yeah, well, you can see why it didn't fit in my brain. It's just like,
yeah.
But yeah, so it's a collection of his scripts. It's also funny, his dedication is saying, like, I did this so I could sign, I'd have something to sign and sell people at book signings, or at cons. So, but yeah, Trueheart has a lot of interesting stuff. He is one of the top writers on the series, and it's stuck with it in its many permutations down the line. But okay, the story of it obviously would start with Jhonen Vasquez, the Mexican-American indie comic artist who might be one of the most influential of his generation, even though he is not as rich as some other guys. So I'm sure he does perfectly fine.
Influential, absolutely, especially if you look at the things this spawned in terms of the people who watched it went on to make things. I think like this and Don Hertzfeldt cartoons were very popular at the same time, so a lot of webcomic artists and a lot of artists said, oh, that's my style. So you'll see a lot of like Don Hertzfeldt inspired things and a lot of Jhonen Vasquez inspired things of the early aughts.
Oh God, you're right. Hertzfeldt, like if you weren't ripping off Johnny the Homicidal Maniac or Zim, you were ripping off his like, I bleed, the blood flying out of the asshole.
My spoon is too big.
Yeah,
all of these things. See, now you're triggering me because all these things were shouted out loud at my anime club, including like everything Gur says. And I am not anti-Gur. I think I still have put away a little plush Gur that would hang off your backpack.
Oh, that's cute.
From like 20 years ago.
No, look, yes, now you reference it, I love those things, but also I think I buried it because I was sick of everyone referencing it all the time. So yeah, Jhonen Vasquez, he was so young when this series started. He was born in 1974, so he is only 8 years older than us. Like he's nearing 50 now. He's a real aging Molgoth now. And so he was just too early for the webcomic boom, but webcomics what would they even have been, American webcomics, if there wasn't Jhonen Vasquez making things? Like, I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, it's a different landscape entirely.
Like Penny Arcade.
It would just be gamer comics.
I know. But even Penny Arcade or Control-Alt-Delete with their shocking violence stuff in it, like that's from Jhonen Vasquez too, like among other people. So yes, but what inspired the guy who inspired all these other people? Well, a real early one for him was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle original comics, the black and white stuff, which you can totally see it because it has meta commentary, gritty black and white imagery with a lot of violence, and also it's weird looking but highly marketable, which is Vasquez's trait as well. He's really good at drawing weird stuff, but when it's time to draw like a cute thing you'd want on a t-shirt, he actually is really good at drawing that too. So in high school, Jhonen did what many comic artists of his generation did a mildly autobiographical comic strip in his high school newspaper about basically a self-insert character which he says, look, it's not totally a self-insert, but it's about a guy, his name's Jhonen, the character's name is Johnny, and he gets revenge on all of the assholes in the school surrounding him all the time. This, like, literally is just a few years before Columbine, too.
This kind of humor was allowed before Columbine, you know?
Columbine, those fucking assholes, they ruined it for geeks to express their put upon angry feelings without picking up a gun. Even that was seen as like, uh-oh, you're going to pick up a gun, though, aren't you? It's bullshit. It sucks, but you know all about that, Bob. But yeah,
absolutely.
But Jhonen is expressing it healthily in his autobiographical school comic, which then those grow into a mini comic, the comic strip, and he is suggested to send it to one of the growing number of small press publishers in the U.S. in 1995. There's a name. I think they just go by SLG now, but it's Slave Labor Graphics. That's the name of them.
Going back to Game Slave, we stopped putting the word slave in things as a joke.
Because everything's too woke now. Boba Fett's ship is the Slave One. That's the name of it.
If you told that to Jordan Peterson, he'd cry on a video.
He really would. But yeah, so SLG, they gave a lot of starts to creator-owned comics, and it's a big thing, too, that they did not take advantage of Jhonen Vasquez. It is creator-owned. He owns Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and that made him a whole bunch of money. So it starts publishing in 1995. It is a quick underground hit. It is beloved comic of many a mall goth.
Oh, absolutely.
And, definitely, when I would tell friends in the mid-90s, a new friend who was cooler than me, and I would say, oh, well, I love comics. And he's like, oh, comics? Have you read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac? And look, now I feel really eye-rolly at its edgelordy stuff in it, but there was very little like it back then.
And it was written by someone who was basically 20 years old.
Yeah. He was like your older brother, pretty much. Yeah. It came out in, it was also, the series was a really limited supply. This is a crazy thing to think of now, but I couldn't just go to a store and count on Johnny the Homicidal Maniac being there.
That's very true. I think, I'm pretty sure I read it before Zim was a thing. I think it was in 1999. I had to wait until I came to see my friend in California and go to a big comic store. And I was like, oh my God, they have a copy of this. I've never seen it before in a store ever. It's not like Barnes & Noble was going to have that on the shelf.
Yeah, in my local shops, you'd have to special order a thing like that, and they would do very limited print runs. Also because SLG was not a major player, like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac probably helped them expand quite a lot with its... it had a real long tail. Like, it started selling well in 95 into 96, and by the end of its 7-issue run, it was a big hit. Like, Vasquez even... who isn't even 21 yet, is writing a thing and they're saying like, oh yeah, this has gotten so big I quit my day job. Like now I can focus just on this. And when it gets collected into a trade paperback, it gets even bigger. Like that's when it can actually start being sold at select Barnes & Noble. It really is helped by the explosion of the manga industry in America in the late 90s too.
Oh yeah, it's a black and white comic.
so it could sit in the same area. And definitely the kids who are reading, Fushigi Yugi or Dragon Ball in that same area, they're also seeing JTHM right there next to it. JTHM.
Yeah,
So-
I remember the cover for that trade giving no indication as to what it was. It was a cool mystery book.
Yeah, it's like a Z with a question mark, meaning like question sleep. And yeah, you had to be in the know. Like at the top of it, you'd see the letters JTHM, but it was, though also I wonder if part of the attempt to hide its nature maybe was a response to Columbine, and that it became like there was a negative idea around that type of story.
Yeah, I definitely bought it post-Columbine.
And it got so big, too, that even when he finished it with the 7th issue in 96, he then did 1997 a 4-issue spin-off series called Squee, starring the cute kid sidekick character in it. Both of those had very long tail sales on it. It was a big hit. And so this brings us to 1998. Nickelodeon. Where's Nickelodeon and its Nicktoons thing at? Well, the shows in active production are Angry Beavers, Hey Arnold, and a bunch of Klasky Chupo shows. It's the Klasky Chupo channel, really.
Thornberries, I guess, is taken off around this time. They're doing new Rugrats.
And Rocket Power's coming soon.
Right.
Yeah.
So good.
Eric Trueheart is a big show he hates is Rocket Power. It was seen in general. Klasky Chupo was seen as their they constantly were compared to it internally of just why can't you be like Rugrats, from executives. It was really bugging them. And so an executive there since the inception of Nicktoons was Mary Harrington. She had overseen a bunch of series, including the original trio of Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy, and she was looking for what was next. But it's an interesting time of upheaval there because they had just hired Fred Seibert away from Cartoon Network to make Oh Yeah Cartoons. So I feel like there was this real push and pull of well, what kind of shows are we going to have? Are we going to have shows like Fairly Odd Parents that look like a Cartoon Network show airing on Nickelodeon? Or, as Harrington wanted, she wanted something weird and kind of gross like Ren and Stimpy and Rocco. She wanted to go back to their roots.
Yeah, going back to this, thinking about my memories, when I watched it in 2001, I thought, oh, this is this decade's Ren and Stimpy, and I'm on board. It's mean, it's cruel, there's really funny and interesting drawings, and lots of screaming.
And you get to feel bad for the creators who didn't get their chance, which fortunately, Vasquez actually seems to be like somebody you should feel bad for, or at least deservative pity instead of a monster. So Harrington, she's always on the lookout for new artists. She'd heard of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and thought, you know what? Let's give this guy a shot. Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. But I guess, God, that underground comics guy who draws the most disgusting and vulgar things was the showrunner for Animaniacs.
That's, I forget that part.
I forgot his name, but I bought one of his books and I was like, I don't want anyone seeing this on my shelf or paging through it.
Cartoonists are allowed to be horny, and I'm glad that they...
I think Johnny Ryan's his name, yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, I think it's a sad thing that sometimes, especially today, artists who run kid shows get judged if they ever drew even a butt on the internet once, because they're like, wait, you're doing a kid show and you drew a butt? It feels impossible that the Jhonen Vasquez of now would ever get hired to make a TV show. It also is worth mentioning, too, how influential the show was on, the kids who watched it, the teens who watched it, included, Justin Roiland. He's even a voice in the Florpus movie. He's
not for long.
Yeah. I just watched it last night, or I watched the first 5 minutes last night. I was because I saw it when it was new. And then I just hear Roiland's voice. I was like, ooh, boy. But
well, sorry, I want to correct myself. Johnny Ryan was behind a lot of the Looney Tunes cartoons, and those are for old people. If he was behind a kid's show, he definitely would be Tumblr canceled.
Okay. Oh, and also people I saw somebody on the wiki, they had archived a post from Rebecca Sugar when she was a teen talking about how not a MySpace, but a personal blog post of I love Invader Zim and Johnny Homicidal Maniac. I hope to be an artist someday, just like Jhonen Vasquez. And I was like, wow, that's how because Rebecca Sugar would have been 15 in 2001 when it debuted.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about Rick and Morty, but yeah, it's also a sci-fi show about cruel humor and a terrible portrayal of America and culture.
And also with anything can happen, like a crazy thing can happen at any time, except Rick and Morty looks more inward into unhappiness instead of just having tacos all the time. So yes, Vasquez himself could not believe that he was being offered this job, but he's like, okay, I'll make a pitch. And obviously he was not going to pitch Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. So instead he comes up with a kid idea also influenced by his childhood, where in ways he feels like Dib and Zim sometimes. Sometimes he felt like the weird alien in his classroom who was just like, what are these feelings? And other times he would feel like Dib, the kid obsessed with paranormal stuff that everybody else is like, you're a fucking nerd, screw you. So and also Gaz is kind of his gamer side. That's his gamer self.
I do love the character of Dib. It is a very of this era protagonist, a very Gen X protagonist, in which he is the everyone is stupid but me character, but he's also repellent and loathsome. And it's funny that in all of these cartoons, the pitch is, or the executives are like, well, let's have a relatable character. Everybody is awful in this show. There's no one to latch onto. Maybe Gaz, but she's so antisocial. You don't want to be her.
Yeah, they when they came back to the new series or the movie, one of the things Vasquez wanted to do was make Gaz slightly nicer. He's like, you know what, we made her too mean. Maybe she should at least feel like that underneath it all, she actually does love her brother. She's just greatly disappointed in him. But yeah, he also was really inspired by his love of intergalactic sci-fi mixed with boring real life, like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Douglas Adams was a huge influence on him and the style of this show. Another thing I love in the show and the concept is that you have a very inept alien who's poorly disguised, but everybody's too stupid to notice, except for an also very inept idiot Dib. They both just fail constantly, and it's just two idiots bouncing off each other.
I also love the visual conceit of his disguise, where he just puts on normal eyes, basically.
Right. Over his big red eyes.
That's like a pompadour, like a 50s pompadour kind of thing.
There's a great line in the first episode, I think, where Dib says, but he doesn't have ears or a nose. He's like, I'm very sensitive about that, actually. And everybody's like, boo, Dib, he's making fun of this kid. Well, also, I gotta say, I think Harrington gets some credit for this. She takes a risk on a guy who has never made anything before other than his own comic, who is 22.
Oof.
And she protects this weird ass thing. Isn't that? Yeah, it's crazy. 22. Yeah. So Harrington, she's like, all right, Vasquez, let's give this a shot. So he makes a pitch. Then she's like, okay, you can take it to the next step. He hires his friend, Rob Hummel, who was slightly older than him, who had just moved to LA to be a screenwriter. And so he tells him how to make a series Bible pretty much. And they build together that pitch. They sell the pilot to Nickelodeon in late 1998. I wanted to get the exact dates on these things because, yes, less than 6 months before Columbine, they approved the pilot for production, which Dib is a scary loner in a black trench coat. That's his character. And I can't believe they let it stay that way.
Yeah, I guess they really believed in it. Or maybe they thought this Columbine thing will blow over, right? It won't affect all culture for the next 3 years.
Maybe they didn't understand on our level. Literally, in my school, wearing a black trench coat was seen close to outlawed. You were definitely judged heavily for it after that.
And that pilot was available on the DVDs, and we talked about this off the mic, but I'm glad Billy West was not chosen for the final voice actor for Zim.
Yeah, it's funny that the pilot is the DVDs were really good DVDs for their time, and Vasquez hires a bunch of his friends to work on the show for this pilot. It's going to be a big food fight story. Their first person actually was Mark Hamill. They then redub him when it comes back because they're like, it just doesn't work.
I think I might have heard audio of that at some point in the past. The one on the DVD is definitely Billy West redubbing Hamill, but yeah, I forgot about that.
No, I have not heard the Hamill version of it, which it's funny too because Hamill famously replaced Tim Curry as the Joker and redubbed all of his stuff. Now it happens to him with Zim. So yeah, if you pull up the pilot online or on the DVDs, you can hear Billy West, and he is screaming so high pitched, and like all voices on the show, it is full of like modulation and weird digital effects, but you can tell it's Billy West. And as they felt even at the time, it's distracting to hear Billy West. You know it's Billy West, and you want a guy who doesn't sound like every other cartoon character you've heard.
Especially if you're making a new show of screaming evil characters.
Yeah, for the guy who made that famous with Ren and Stimpy 10 years earlier. Yeah, which then it's funny because the guy they do hire, he becomes so ubiquitous after the fact that now he wouldn't be hired for Zim because everybody's like, well, I've heard that guy in everything.
His voice is very unique, but also it's the one voice.
Yes.
And I do love it. I love him in Psychonauts and this. He was in Angry Beavers.
Yeah, and and Billy and Mandy.
Yeah.
He's Richard Horvitz. Yeah, it's he's great. But yeah, so they do the pilot, and this is from True Heart's book that he said, quote, Nick really didn't get the pilot. Like they did not think it was that great of a pilot, and it seemed like it was about to be dumped onto Oh Yeah Cartoons, and they just like all the other failed pilots at the time where they go like, well, that was a nice try, but we'll move on to our next project. But it then was shown to a test screening of children who loved it. True Heart says it scored extremely high, maybe the highest like Harrington had ever seen in a rating for kid testing.
Yeah, I have to think like maybe kids of this era had not really seen Ren and Stimpy or anything like this. I mean, that's why Ren and Stimpy was so popular, and Beavis and Butthead. It was like a new kind of humor for a new generation.
I could see them definitely jumping for joy with the kind of like screaming violence, and also the food fight action of the pilot is really well done, even with their like pilot budget. They're doing very good with it. And so those things impress the network so much, they're like, you know what? As crazy as it sounds, we're going to do it. We're ordering 20 half hours of the show cut into 11-minute segments. So they actually ordered a season. Every second of this, I'm like, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So Vasquez started staffing up. He's a creator and a showrunner, and it's a script-driven show. So they write the scripts first, then give it to the boarders. And the co-head writer of the show, at least in the first year, is TV's Frank, a.k.a. Frank Conniff. We mentioned him before. And, I looked it up. Like, Frank is very proud of his work. He's tweeted about it a bit. If you search his name and Zim on Twitter, he's so proud of it. He loves seeing people in the wild with an Invader ZIM t-shirt or backpack on. He's like, hey, this Uber driver's got good taste, or whatever he'll say. And him and Vasquez seem very friendly. Though I will say, in True Heart's book, I did a search on the Kindle version. I was like, he doesn't mention Frank Conniff once in this. Part of me wonders if he was assigned to be kind of the older head writer on it, because Vasquez was very unproven at running a show.
Nickelodeon did that a lot, even with Ren and Stimpy. And Frank, it might seem like an odd choice, but if you read about MST3K, and we have a lot, on record, a lot of the people say if there's a super dark joke, it's Frank's joke. He has a very dark sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, man. When I haven't watched a ton of the Mads stuff he's done lately, but yeah, when I've seen it live a few times, he says the darkest stuff that I'm like, oh man, Joel Hodgson would not have liked that one. He would not have, I recall him in the Glenn or Glenda one, he says the line of like, I want to come on your sweaters.
Yes.
And then Trey says like, okay, Frank, you need to do the jokes here. Don't just say how you feel.
I don't know. I've never talked to the man, but it seems like either he or his agent was trying to get him into animation, because around this time he also wrote a short for Disney. It was a version of the Three Little Pigs in which it was shot as if it was the real world.
Oh, yeah.
But that was never shown to us. It's not on Disney Plus. It was just Disney is making shorts, and he wrote one of them.
Yeah, Conniff in the late 90s, like that was he leaves at the end of season 6 of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which the behind the scenes thing we learn later is like Jim Allen sucks and no one wanted to keep working with him. And then on top of that, like, MST3K was a modest hit for the time, and guys like Conniff can then move to Los Angeles and start getting jobs of like, oh wow, you wrote for MST3K, I'll set you up with tons of new gigs. So
it was heartbreaking as a fan. In a sense, I was a child, but I thought like, oh, they sold out, and I think a few of their former peers were a little catty about it at first, because they viewed like, oh yeah, Trace Beaulieu went to work for America's Funniest Home Videos. How fucking hacky is that?
Yeah, I mean, it started with J. Elvis Weinstein, right, where they said like his character went to work at an Arby's. Didn't they
Yeah,
say?
I think so.
Yeah, it was. I think they were a little distasteful of people moving, which is like MST3K is a fun show, but also it's owned by Jim Mallon. So if you want to actually make some real money in your entertainment career, sadly you're going to have to move to LA and try to write like an Eddie Murphy movie that may or may not get made.
Yeah, and he's the reason why everyone left, especially Joel.
Yep, yeah, which fortunately he sold it off, and that's why the reason Joel came back is because Jim Mallon sold it off and he's out of there. Anyway, Frank Conniff is the head writer on it, so it's him and Vasquez, and True Heart's book mentions this. I'll get into some of the specifics in the episodes we do, but he has an entire chapter that's like, look, I don't want to be the book of complaining about us getting lots of notes, but we got so many notes on the show, mainly about tone and it being too scary for kids, in which you just want to shout, like, you bought Jhonen Vasquez's show. Like, what did you expect?
And this is, kids like this. Kids like being a little scared. They like things that are a little creepy. Again, go back to Ren and Stimpy. There was a reason why that was such a big hit. There's a reason why the test screening went so well for Zim's pilot, right?
Yeah, exactly. They like that it breaks the rules. But meanwhile, as Trueheart puts in his book of like, they were next to like Rocket Power, which is all radical kids who make sure they always wear their helmets and knee pads. So no parent can sue Nickelodeon about safety stuff. And so you have those two together, like, we're a square peg for the round hole that is Rugrats or Rocket Power or Thornberries. Like, and we're not that.
It is funny seeing what they're adjacent to, because in one of the episodes we're covering, Dib is beaten up by adults.
Oh,
soldiers.
Right. That's right. He's in a episode full of death. And as well, Trueheart, he said that when he was younger, he was more mad about it. But as he's worked in Hollywood longer, because he also was very young when the show started, he was in his early 20s, that he now realizes, like, the Nickelodeon executive they were given, not Mary Harrington, but the other executive who was running things, and he figures the guy clamped down really hard because he feared that Vasquez was, as an inexperienced new creator, was going to try to do tons of stuff and try to get away with a bunch of stuff. So he was extra hard on Vasquez. And oppositely, Trueheart figures like those guys were also young, especially Vasquez, who his previous experiences doing an independent comic book just for himself, which with anything he felt like drawing is in there. How do you go from that to then working in the animation industry where everybody has notes all of the time? They probably dealt with it poorly, he admits now. He's like, we probably were kind of dicks who deserved to be yelled at a couple times.
I'm thinking of my behavior in my early 20s and how that would have worked out in Hollywood. No.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, actually, Vasquez does not have a lot of other credits after this. Yeah.
It also must have been weird working with Frank, because he's in his early to mid 40s and he's twice the age of these kids who got their TV show, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you're a nerd, you probably grew up on MST3K and you look up to him that way. And also, as Frank himself joked, he's looked like he's 50 his entire life. So.
Yes. As late as as early as the late 80s, he's looked 50.
It's why he seems ageless, even though he's in his 60s now. And I think after a health scare, he's doing good, Frank. And we're proud of you, Frank. So yeah, Vasquez and Harrington apparently tried to keep the writers and artists free of a lot of it, but occasionally they'd be involved in these shouting matches over a silly joke of like, I don't get this, or they'd say like, why is Dib doing this? I don't understand it. You got to make it clearer. Like, they constantly were telling him, look, the stupidest kid is going to watch this, so you got to make everything very, very clear.
In that case, he'll just enjoy the colors and the motion.
That's what they should have said, yeah. But, so that was their big problem with notes at the beginning. This is in production during the year 2000, just to put a time frame on this here.
What a time to be alive.
Yes, the cast comes together pretty quickly after that pilot. In the pilot, there are several of the voices were already there. They just didn't have their Zim yet. which, yes, as we mentioned, Richard Horvitz. I could not imagine anyone else playing Zim now. Like, it is such a specific voice and truly perfect.
And he's got to be all over the place as the character too.
Yes, man. Some of my favorite lines of him is when he's trying to act nonchalant. Like his line in the episode, like, "No, don't be silly." Yeah, I mean, and it's Horvitz is he's a weird guy with he is made to be a cartoony voice, and he loves being Zim. He loves doing Zim. If you see him at a con, it seems like he will do Zim at the drop of a hat. You don't even ask him to do it. He just does it.
He's had that voice since then.
Yeah, and probably his voice is going to be trapped like that forever because of how much he screams. Then there is Dib, played by Andy Berman, who was doing well as a character actor at the time, but today he is a successful television producer-writer.
I saw that, yeah. His voice acting in the series is so good. I just love his screeching, anxious voice.
He's so good. Like, wait, no, what? Yeah, he's really good. He's one of those adult men who can do a kid voice pretty well.
He reminds me of whoever does the voice of Steve on American Dad. Similar, like they're both in the same range.
It seems like what happened with Berman was he was acting on that show Psych, and he then pitched himself as like, I could write for Psych too. And he became one of their top level producers on it. And then when I look at the other shows he's written, it's one of those shows like Psych where there's like 70 episodes of it and I've never heard of it, type deep cable shows.
It's like, hey, your aunt needs something to watch, right?
And they want to see an attractive but not in your face guy in his 30s having adventures. But yeah, that's something they say of like, well, if we're ever to bring back the show regularly, Andy Berman is a very busy man who can't just show up to do recordings whenever you need him. Though he came back for Florpus, he loves being the character too. You've got Ricky Simons as Gurr, who is not a voice actor. He is a comic artist friend of Vasquez's, who Jhonen was like, hey, your voice is really funny. You should be Gurr. You should be this guy screaming all of the time. And he also was an artist on the show too.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think most of the voices on this show are run through a filter, but Richard Horowitz's is not, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, or if it is a filter, it has to be the least filtered of any of them. Honestly, having them isolated things, I really hear the distortion in the sounds for this episode too. Then you have Gaz, played by Melissa Fawn, who is hot off the heels of Ed on the Cowboy Bebop dub.
That was one of the first things I noticed, having just finished the Cowboy Bebop dub in like the year 2000, late 2000 probably. I was like, oh my God, it's Ed! Are they allowed to voice things? Real things?
I know. I think she had to have a different credit or something on some of her stuff. Yeah, she's one of those people who does the lesser viewed voice acting on anime dubs that she then graduated into real voice acting on shows like this because the dudes making the shows were like, you were so good on Cowboy Bebop, and of course we all watch Cowboy Bebop, so we want you as Gaz on the show. And she's great in everything. She has done 8 million anime shows and video games. She's Eri in Fooly Cooly, to mention shows we've covered before. The Classmates.
The one with the glasses?
The girl classmate who has a crush on the kid in the show.
The 3 episodes. There's a 3rd episode about her.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And also she's Dendi in OKKO.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, she's great. And then Professor Membrane, voiced by Roger Bumpus, aka Squidward Tennis Balls.
A little distractingly Squidwardy, but I'll allow it, I think.
It wasn't. You didn't instantly think Squidward back in 2001 when you watched it. Now I can't not hear Squidward, which is his main job. I mean, you can see he has other credits, but you're like, yeah, that's just Squidward. Like, oh yeah, I didn't even mention, Psychonauts. That's the huge thing we all know outside of cartoons, what we know Richard Horvitz for. And then the late voice acting legend Lucille Bliss is Miss Bitters. She got her start in Cinderella as one of the sisters in it, the evil stepsisters.
It's another hallmark of I consider this a 90s cartoon just based on when it was made, where there's always some horrible old person in it.
Yeah, that you could be mean to old people and also be like, oh, my teacher sucked. And she was, and also After I read this, I was like, oh, now I can't unhear it. She's Smurfette. She was Smurfette in a million things.
Oh, wow, because Smurfette did have a husky voice
Yes.
run through a filter. Sorry, another hallmark of this era of 90s cartoons is that the mom and the dad, the fake mom and dad of Zim, are very like 60s/50s parents. The dad has got a pipe, but they're both robots.
You're right. Yeah, they are cut from the same cloth as Dexter's Lab's parents and the Fairly Odd Parents' real parents. Yeah, they're all parodies of boomer parent nostalgia. They didn't have a ton of guest star voices, but I always loved hearing Kevin McDonald as one of the tallest. I love hearing him anytime. And other people included Kerry Kenny from The State, Ted Raimi of all the Sam Raimi movies, and Arlie Ermey, because he was literally in everything back then. The animation staff was headed up by Steve Ressel, who is pretty much the series director on every single episode. He's the credited director. Trueheart also mentions that an interesting thing was their animation and writing staffs were in the same building for Nick in Burbank. They were not in separate places, which he's like that for LA produced animation. Often not the case. They're often usually really sequestered. He then says he probably thinks that's a capitalist plan to make the two sides dislike each other so they don't look to the management as the bad guys.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
I like seeing Trueheart has a couple fun lefty asides in there that I like. But Wrestle comes straight off of the Klasky Chupo Factory. This is his first non-Klasky Chupo job. His first directing gigs were on Stressed Eric and Duckman.
Ooh.
He's actually the director of the Duckman finale.
Oh, wow. Okay. Props.
So you can see why, too, he'd be a good fit for a meaner show like
Yes.
Invaders. Yeah.
Somehow meaner with like a crueler depiction of the world we live in.
Stressed Eric and Duckman are both also... Duckman and Zim are similar type guys who are just like... They can't understand what modern society is, and they feel outside of it and angry.
That's why Duckman needs a comeback.
It's not too late, and Jason Alexander would do it in a heartbeat. So yes, the animation staff also includes a lot of people who'd work on future stuff, including the future co-creator of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Brian Kaneko, is also working on the series. Trueheart has a cute interview with him in the book too, where they basically just did an online chat, and Kaneko's like, no, Avatar was not really influenced. Was not inspired to do it after working on Invader ZIM, but I loved working on it. The overseas animation was handled by Sun Woo, the South Korean studio that does a lot of stuff. And they mentioned that Trueheart says he felt a lot of sympathy for them because he definitely knew they were being underpaid, as all overseas animators are, but also that Vasquez's very particular style was really hard to get at first. Like, it does not animate easily.
Yeah. I mean, they made them more animation friendly to designs, but still, it's a kind of character you hadn't seen much before move around in a cartoon.
And I know we all hate that every cartoon now either looks like Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, or Rick and Morty. One of the reasons they do that is because overseas studios who are given less and less budget and worse time frames and deadlines to do it, if you make it look pretty much like Rick and Morty, they know how to do that, and you won't have quality control issues.
Yeah. And speaking of the animation, it's really unfortunately a product of its time and how these things were edited and aired, because if you pop this up on Paramount Plus.
That's a lot of peas.
Yes, I'm popping my peas. If you put it on Paramount Plus, you'll notice, like, boy, this looks bad. I mean, the animation quality, the animation itself is very good, very expressive. It still holds up, but it was either edited on video or Paramount Plus was just given videos from Nick's archives, because it is very video-y. There's video artifacts. There's so much shimmering on black lines. It's a real shame, because if you look at the Netflix special, boy, it's like, this is what this is supposed to look like, but it's just trapped behind this like analog artifact wall, the old episodes.
It's really too bad, because it was early digital animation, so I mean, maybe the files aren't the original master files of the digital stuff isn't around anymore, but an upscale would make more sense with it going digitally than it would on a cell animation from that time. You know, with cell animation back then, since it was filmed on actual film, a remaster it's easy to go from the negatives, though, like we talked about with Simpsons. Even if you have the negatives, they edited it on video, and so it doesn't really look the same, or you'd have to re-edit the entire thing. That's one of the cool things our pals at Discotech do that I really like, that when they have done recreations of the classic trailers you'd see for like New Cutie Honey or Project A-ko, that it shows all the clips in the order you remember it, but they're remastered, so they actually edited it to look exactly like the original trailer.
That's nice. And, I guess this brings me back to when I was actually recording these on VHS, because it was still the year 2001, and, file sharing was not quite at this level for me yet. So I guess that's nice, but boy, I'd like to see what this looked like before it was destroyed on video. File
sharing was a big boom for Zim after its cancellation, I think. I think that's another reason it really spread around. But yeah, not only was it early digital animation, but it integrated a ton of 3D CGI into it on a TV budget, which pretty much only Futurama was ahead of them in that. Like, they were the only other people on Invader ZIM doing it then. There were some stories in one interview of like that Futurama staff went to their studio one day and that they were like, wow, Zim, you guys are pulling this off with way smaller of a budget than we have to do a lot of the same kind of shots. It was very impressive. And yes, the very industrial electronic music score for the series is done by Kevin Manthe, who I think does a really great job, especially with the credit score, like dun 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 dun.
It's a great theme, yeah.
And when he has to do a silly like ding 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 ding, he does good with that too. So the series debuted March 31st, 2001, right after the Kids' Choice Awards, partnered with another big Nicktoon, Fairly Odd Parents. So you can see, when I say this, you see the trajectory already of what's going to happen.
It's so bizarre this premiered at the same time. A hugely popular show, not SpongeBob popular, but Fairly Odd Parents went on for a long, long time, got several movies, et cetera, et cetera.
It was huge. Yeah. It was huge. Just not SpongeBob huge, but nothing is bigger than SpongeBob. But
actually, when I went to the Mall of America in like 2019, all of the Nicktoon stuff was at that point maybe 6 years out of date, 7 years. So I rode the Fairly Odd Parents roller coaster at the Mall of America.
I wonder how much you found a Ren and Stimpy there. I wonder how much Zim was there.
I'm sure there was like one token Zim thing for the 38-year-olds visiting.
And that was their problem straight out the gate with the show too, is that it was an instant hit with people who were either in high school or just out of high school, like me and you. But that isn't who Nick wants to advertise to. Like, they want 6 to 11-year-olds, which again, then I say, then why did you buy this show? Like, this was never going to be that.
Was it ever, was Snick still going on? Could they make it because Ren and Stimpy became a Snick show because they're like, okay, you're on at 9, do whatever you want.
ToonJay reminded me of it, that I forgot that a lot of its premieres were done on Friday nights. Like, that was the original slot. I can't recall if Snick still existed by 01. I mean, too, when they see the content of this, they're like, okay, this needs to be right before Nick at Night. Like, this can't be on too early, at least for a new episode.
Apparently, Snick lasted until 2005.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, man. I'm impressed. I didn't know that.
And Invader ZIM would eventually be a 9:30 show at least once.
Okay. I mean, well, that is them at least adjusting to what the demographic was, because they really wanted a show that would be hit with kids, which is exactly what Fairly Odd Parents was. Though also you can see the similarities between them. Both are about kids who hate current day life. They're like, man, teachers, babysitters, they all suck. I wish I had something fantastical to take me away from it, but Zim is just so much more of a miserable world.
Yeah, there are no victories really ever.
And Fairly Odd Parents is like more colorful and happy, and Invader ZIM is after the first few episodes, it's getting very sporadic airings too. Like, it's really hard to count on. They feel like the programming people just chose to not air it at weird time. It was not production delays that caused some weird airings of it.
But for all intents and purposes, it was popular, right?
It was. It did pretty well. It was getting solid word of mouth. But definitely the feeling was that it is for slightly older kids. Vasquez apparently at some point was trying to pitch like, how about you put us on MTV then? We'd be a huge hit on MTV, but that's not what MTV was about at that time.
That's right. Yeah, precedent was set because MTV aired a few Ren and Snippy's first because Nickelodeon said, we will not air this. So MTV would air, I think the Stimpy's Christmas one with the fart. I think that was an MTV airing first.
I remember watching it on MTV for sure. Yeah. This would have been a hit on, well, it would have been a hit on 1997 MTV. In 2001, MTV's drifting a little away from that, I guess, but I still think it would have been a hit. But I mean, in general, this is an edgy's 90s show that had the bad luck of coming out in 2001. The culture moves so fast sometimes, and this was one of those of like a show that would have been a big normal thing on Nickelodeon in 1998. By 2001, it's like, hey, things are shiny and glossy now.
And I was looking at the production schedule, or sorry, the broadcast schedule of this show, and it's very telling. And yes, we talk about 9/11 a lot, but it's like episode 10, September 7th, episode 11, March 29th of the following year.
Yup. Yeah, so that's, all right. That's the big thing that killed the show. So there's a lot of bullshit out there. I'm not even going to say, like, was it canceled because of the bloody Gurr image? Like, no, that's stupid. They also didn't have an unfinished ending episode called Invader ZIM. That never happened either. There's a ton of bullshit started by people online because it was the early internet. But this is how True Heart recounts it in the book. By the end of the summer, they are renewed for a second season of 20 episodes. Like, Nick's like, you know what? We're doing it. And they, of course, were getting tons of notes, but they're like, things are going to go okay. Then, of course, September 11th happens, which already they were in the post-Columbine world. Now this show about killing lots of people and destruction is really not what people at Nick want to be airing.
I also want to point out, our listeners do joke that we mention 9/11 a lot, but I've been reading a lot of novels from the 50s and 60s, and World War II comes up constantly, so give us a break.
Yeah, it's the same. It's all the same. Oh, man, these guys talk about Pearl Harbor so much. Give it a rest. So, yeah.
We're just bitter about it because they kicked off our adult lives.
It made everything awful from then on. Like, it was our first year of college when that stuff was happening. It's, but so yes, same, Mike, like your and my future, Zim's future was instantly darkened by 9/11 because they were pretty underway with season 2. Some shows were getting storyboarded. They were writing all their 20 scripts, or I guess really 40 scripts because it was, it's 20 half hours. And True Heart says the feeling in the company was like, oh, and I bet we're about to get renewed at least for a third season, because if we're going to get to 40 episodes, then just do it one more season to 65. Then we can be syndicated and rerun forever. It'll be easy. And so he tells this story of like, this is about a month after 9/11. There's a meeting called with Vasquez and Harrington, and he's like, oh boy, this has got to be the renewal. And he says that instantly you can feel the mood is different, and it is not about the renewal. It is that they are canceled. Canceled. We think this just happens now. They are canceled 6 episodes into season 2. They say contractually you have to finish all your scripts just in case, but we are not paying for the animation on more than 6 episodes of this second season, and it's just going to be dead. And yeah, it's really sad. Like that. People act like it's weird now that it's like a go backsies on a renewal on things, because Netflix has just done a few of those this last month, but it happened back then too.
It definitely, and yeah, I mean, to underline it, 9/11, period. That's the only reason. And it just, again, you had to be there to understand how much it affected culture. It was the "will we ever laugh again" era. And of course, you look at this show where it's like, America sucks, the world is not worth saving. That's not the kind of show you want to put on at this time of the world stage.
Yeah. Well, and also True Heart says that Viacom was making a lot of cuts at the time because after 9/11, there is a recession and people are making cutbacks. And of course, as we always see, when something's called a recession or whatever, that is when companies are like, well, we should just fire as many people as we possibly can. He said he saw the writing on the wall because like the holiday party got canceled and catering got cut back a whole lot. And he's like, oh, wow, Viacom really can't afford free taco lunches for people anymore. And he says that when he can view it from the side of the executive, he's like, okay, there are 3 active in production shows at this time: Hey Arnold, Fairly Odd Parents, and Invader ZIM. if you're going to kill one of those shows, guess which one you're going to kill. Like, it totally makes sense why it happened, but still, it's something they will come to regret, I think, because they would have wished they had more Invader Zim episodes after that.
It was such a weird world to live in which the show was canceled, episodes were finished, but would not appear again for 5 years on DVD. That's when they would eventually resurface. Sorry to steal your fire if you're getting that.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, the show was just, Nickelodeon hated it. It was popular, but then all the merch came. And you could experience
everything.
Yeah, you could experience the show not by watching it, but like, here's a Gurr doll, and here's a Zim shirt, and here's like fun posters. But you couldn't actually get more of the show you liked.
And they barely aired it anymore after 9/11 too. Like, yeah. So, sorry, it was 6 episodes. They didn't air until later. I said 6, but it technically was 7 was produced. I remember this in late 2002 in early internet saying like, guys, they haven't aired Invader Zim in forever on Nick, but they got the Xmas special. The holiday special is going to air at Christmas time. And if we all watch it, maybe they'll bring back Zim. But now we know the decision was already made. And they were lucky to get to complete and release that Christmas episode. But yeah, True Art says it also was, as we've heard from other friends who worked on shows that get canceled, on a live action show, if your show gets canceled, maybe have like a month more work on it. If you're in this animated show, it's like, well, you're canceled. Have a good 18 months finishing up your last episode.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was very hardcore fans that made it so Zim was not forgotten. It had a huge online footprint. Not only that, but like its success with older audiences, I think, helped even get people to buy a ton of copies of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Like, Rebecca Sugar mentioned this in some of her chats about why she loved the series. You see Invader Zim, and then some friend of yours says, or you see somebody online say, like, if you think Invader Zim is cool, you should see his fucked up comic he did before that. So then you read that, and then you go like, oh my God, I want to be an artist just like this. And it made a ton of people become comic artists, then animation people for the first time, thanks to that.
I remember this time period, especially being young and single and angry about television a lot. And so many things happened that made me think, I'm so smart. And they cancel all the smart shows because Futurama is being mistreated, or so is Arrested Development. Mystery Science Theater went off the air. This gets taken off the air. It was a great time to be angry about television as a white man in your early 20s.
Man, you're right. I miss that kind of, I mean, everything gets canceled still now too, but yeah, my favorite things, it now is turned around to like, well, my favorite things have too much of things. Like, I actually haven't watched, they finally brought back Futurama. Well, I haven't watched every episode of it after they did the thing I said I wanted.
Please take the things away.
You make too much of these things.
There's a whole new season of Mystery Science Theater I haven't seen.
Yeah, me too. I watched 2 episodes of it, and I really got to watch more of it. But yeah, the reruns do well. This is one of the craziest things I completely forgot until I looked up the DVDs. These were not released by Viacom. That's how little they had believed in it. It was released by a honestly not that big anime company, Anime Works, a arm of Media Blasters, which their first big hits were porno.
Yeah, I remember when I would buy Media Blasters anime and I would get ads for the porno they released. I was like, I'm not buying this for that. Was that the Zim House sets?
Yeah, that was. It started as, they didn't even call them seasons; they called them volume. They did do all the episodes, and I believe it was 4 volumes. And thanks to the incredible sales of it, they then sold it in the super fancy box set. And of course now Nick has the rights back and they release it. And they're much shittier DVDs. I was like, oh, are these good DVDs? And all the reviews on Amazon say like all the extras that were on the old DVDs are gone. They didn't bother putting them on there. But fortunately, since it sold so well, you can get the old DVDs from 2004 relatively cheaply on eBay. They are hardly rare
because they were released during the DVD boom. It's so funny because you can see who these are marketed to. They were released like anime DVDs, basically.
They knew the audience. And also I love that you knew that Jhonen Vasquez, him and his team were like, oh yeah, we'll talk about Zim all day. We'll do free commentaries for this. We'll do tons of behind the scenes stuff on it. Like, they are very fully featured DVDs that include a lot of the unproduced scripts. Like, that was something for the next like decade of stuff, was you'd see people would upload the unproduced scripts, or they'd even make radio play versions with the voice actors. Later, too, they do Invader Con, which were fan cons where a lot of the voice actors and writers would go there and perform the unproduced scripts. I watched one of them, and honestly, it is very distracting that there are clearly, at least in the front row, look, I don't want to make assumptions, but it's a bunch of squealing girls who squeal every time Dib and Zim have an interaction that one could write a fanfic about, and to the fact that during it, Horvitz and Berman with Zim and Dib puppets act out a kiss, and the girls go crazy. So it's I gotta say, it's very distracting to watch it there.
Boy, I never would have thought there'd be Zim and Dib shipping, but hey, it seems obvious in retrospect now.
Yeah, as I was saying it out loud, I was like, oh yeah, of course. I would think a lot of people, especially girls at the time, came into womanhood with that fanfic.
All of their anger is just sexual tension towards each other, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the basis of all slash fic, really. I guess like
it started with Kirk and Spock.
Yes. Oh, they have so much tension. It must be they want to fuck. Like, but yeah. So it was a big hit with sullen youths across the globe. So what would happen? There had to be more coming. So Vasquez has talked a lot about this over time. It became a big hit, not just thanks to the DVDs, which were selling very well, but also on the Nicktoons cable channel, they were airing the unreleased episodes too as big premieres, and they did tons, like huge for deep cable ratings too. So Vasquez is like, okay, you want us back, right? And he says that it was an insultingly low budget that Nick offered him. That I think Trueheart said basically they wouldn't have been able to leave their living room in it. It was just going to be so limited. So he's like, nope, can't do it with that budget. And Nick apparently would not raise the budget. So Vasquez stepped away from it. They even attempted like, okay, what if we did just like webisodes with Gurr? But that fizzled out too I couldn't see why, but it just did not work out.
It seems like a sure thing to me, so I'm surprised they couldn't make it work.
How do you not do at least webisodes with Gurr? Like, that's cheap. It's just Gurr, 2 minutes of Gurr going like, woo, blah, blah, just
it writes itself.
Yeah. And those Zim and Gurr would appear in pretty much every Nicktoons crossover-y game there would be.
That's right. You can play like baseball with them and kart racing. Stimpy can pitch to Gurr.
It's as we always dream.
And one of the Rocket Power guys can catch the fly ball.
You know, they'd be probably pretty good at all sports. They're very active kids.
I hate those teens. Or sorry, tweens.
So yes, there were all these unproduced scripts that were slowly leaking out into the 2010s. Then finally in 2015, there was new official Zim stuff, not counting all the merchandise everywhere, obviously. But Oni Press, the comic publisher, was able to get an agreement between not just Nickelodeon, but also Vasquez to make new Invader ZIM comics. That Vasquez would kind of be like the executive producer of the comics, but he did not like write every script and do it day to day. This is the secret of comics, folks. They're actually very hard to do. So once you get rich enough to not have to make comics all the time, you don't want to anymore. Like pretty much all of them, like Vasquez, he didn't really do too many comics once he got very rich from all the Zim stuff.
I believe a friend of the show, Casey Green, was a contributor to those comics.
That's right. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was. There's a lot of great comics in there. It ran for 50 issues plus a bunch of specials. Like, it only ended just last year. It was a big deal for Oni.
There were quarterly issues after the original comic stopped running, and then I looked up like, so the original comic ran for 50 issues. The last comic was released on March 18th, 2020.
Oh, what an interesting time. They got out just in time.
That was the day, right? That was lockdown day for most of us. So this is a series associated with unfortunate dates.
Man, yeah, they really have it rough, these guys. Yeah, so, and here's some more rough stuff they had. All right, so the comics 2015. Comics are great, and let them reuse some of their unused pitches, including Trueheart had a pitch for like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers thing where it's pants that take people over, and then he finds out that they can't do it because as he's pitching it, Jimmy Neutron is about to air an episode with a similar plot, and he's like, kids wouldn't even remember this in 2 years when our cartoon comes out. And they're like, nope, Jimmy Neutron did it. You can't do it.
I'm glad there's no sincere Jimmy Neutron love. I just see it memed as, in the terms of like Shrek and Garfield, it's up there with really dumb looking things you can meme about.
Yeah, nobody has like now I want to say nobody. I'm sure there's somebody who loves Jimmy Neutron, but it's more just about how hideous it looks now. But so they're working on that. Then in summer of 2017 comes the big news everybody had been waiting for years and years for. Vasquez and Nick had finally reached a deal to make more Zim. Originally, he had pitched it as a miniseries, and then they said, what about a movie? Just do a TV movie. And so they finally come to an agreement for Enter the Florpus, which would pick things back up again in the Zim story, bringing back together all the living cast and many creators. The voice actress for Miss Bitters, she retired years before this, but she lived to be 96 and passed away in 2012.
Wow, so she was in her almost 90s doing this role.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so, yeah, the Zim movie was part of this, like, it's only 5 years ago, but it feels so much longer ago. Viacom was part of this whole thing with all these companies like, okay, if we're doing streaming, we need to have like 17 different streaming services, and we'll make tent poles for theirs. So I believe Splat was the name of the Nickelodeon only streaming service. Now everything is like, no, there's got to be just 5 streaming services that sort of have everything, but now not even have everything. And unfortunately, Invader Zim, as usual, got stuck in the crosshairs. They make the movie to be a big tentpole for Splat. Then by the time they finish the movie in 2019, Viacom has killed Splat. And they're like, you know what? Netflix had some money for this. They offered it. So you're just going to be on Netflix. And unfortunately, when it goes to Netflix, Netflix is like, yeah, it does fine. We're not, but we didn't like authorize it in the first place. We don't really care.
They don't own it. They don't have, it's not their character. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Zim is left with nowhere to go at the moment. I wonder if and the Florpus movie is still on Netflix. I wonder if when that deal ends, will it go to Paramount Plus? And could Invader Zim finally get some new stuff on Paramount Plus? I don't know. I mean, early aughts nostalgia is only getting more powerful.
It's true. They're rising to defeat us, those early aughts children. All of our nostalgia has been marketed to us already. Now it's their turn.
You see it with those Transformers movies. They're starting to be Beast Wars movies now because when I say we, I don't. Bob doesn't like Transformers, but when I say we, I mean 80s Transformers fans are now too old to be a good demographic, so they got to put it about the Beast Wars.
And are all of these on Paramount Plus? I wasn't digging deep enough, but I only saw season 1. Maybe there was some drop-down menu I was missing.
Yeah, Paramount Plus is a little sticky. I'm going to open up the app right now, actually. Oh, yeah, just hit season 2 on the drop-down. You'll get the 7
I must have missed the
episodes.
drop-down. I hate Paramount Plus, by the way. There's too much good stuff on it, but they make you... I pay for it. You shouldn't be allowed to show me pre-roll videos. Okay?
Yes, I know the pre-roll, and because it's in the Nick show category, they're showing children's stuff, which is like, children aren't watching this. It's adults watching this.
And then they have to load the production company logo to show you, by the way, it's a Nickelodeon show, and then you're allowed to watch.
You can't skip that either. Yeah. Now, that fantasy football thing they're doing, that is so weird, and honestly, it feels evil to me. So this is a trailer they have before it because Nickelodeon is working with NFL now. Like the NFL is putting some games on Nickelodeon, and it definitely is because the NFL's like, we're not getting as many kids into football these days. We better put this on Nickelodeon, and maybe we'll get kids into football. So that's why that show is about a girl reconnects with her football playing, her NFL player father by controlling him by playing him in the Madden video game.
Oh, kids love those damn video games, right?
It feels very insidious of how the NFL is trying to, in this post-concussion world where kids aren't playing football as much growing up because parents are rightly worried that their kids are going to have their brains scrambled by it. They need to have these shows to be like, no, football's good, kids. Like football.
I don't know how any child can get on board with professional sports. I'm sure a lot of parents out there, their kids probably love them. But when I was a kid, I didn't have the patience. And there were not as many distractions as there are today. If you watched football as a kid, you see like 2 minutes of gameplay between 8 minutes of commercials. Yes, that's a very hack observation, but it's true. So there was no phone for me to look at back then, so I just like went upstairs to play Nintendo. But now, like, how can any kid deal with the amount of ads in professional sports? It's unthinkable.
It's again, as we're complaining about having to see even like 30 seconds of an ad on something. Yeah, the NFL, they got a real challenge on their hands of getting anyone under 20 to like football, I guess. But we'll see if this plan works out via working with Nickelodeon. But yeah, so that's where Zim is at for the time being. Of course, you can see him in tons of video games and toys to this very day, but will there be more Zim? It remains to be seen. But you should be happy he even got that movie. Like that, honestly, that movie was so far along in production that it would have cost Viacom more money to kill it than to release it with Netflix, and we're lucky that happened, honestly.
Yeah, now I want to see it because the Rocko's Modern Life movie, we covered it for What a Cartoon almost 4 years ago now, and that was a great movie.
It's Enter the Florpus is really, really good. I really liked it a whole lot too. I think I maybe like the Rocko one more, but also I like Rocko more than Invader ZIM, just a little bit.
Me too, and I don't think Invader ZIM is taking on trans issues in their movie.
No, I don't think so. Not in my memory. But all right, why don't we take a break? When we come back, we're going to head to the wonderful time of right before 9/11 for a pair of Invader ZIM episodes.
Zim, the green guy, will return. We warned ya.
Hello. I'm here to tell you there is no upcoming invasion. Just go about your business. Miserable human stink beasts! My doom will fall from the sky onto your filthy doomed heads! So just keep on watching television. Don't worry. I'm gonna sing the doom song now.
Invader ZIM, invading Nickelodeon next.
Welcome to the break, everybody, or should I say your doom? It's me, Henry Gilbert.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I swear I never sang the Doom song in the year 2001.
And a big thank you to our premium patron this week, ToonJay, for picking out Invader ZIM, one we have been meaning to cover for a long time, and it was a really fun, if a little cringe-inducing, trip back down memory lane.
Lots of fun, random humor of the early aughts.
And we're only able to do this thanks to supporters like ToonJay at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. If you head to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, sign up for $5 a month, you get so much stuff. You get all the episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also access to our vast back catalog of full-length miniseries episodes. Nearly 6 years worth of Patreon content is available to you immediately if you sign up. That includes monthly new episodes of Talking Futurama and Talking the Hill, as well as that entire back catalog. And also, we've covered existing shows in the past, like Batman the Animated Series, The Critic, and Mission Hill. That's all available to you the second you sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons at the $5 level. But when you sign up for the $10 level, you get all the $5 stuff and also access to one extremely long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, which if you're on the free feed hearing this, you get to hear an extended preview of that where we talk about an animated feature film, very in-depth, just like we do episodes of Invader ZIM, and that often means talking for over 4, 5, even 6 hours about an animated feature film. Just last week, you got to hear the extended preview of Batman Superman World's Finest, the first ever meeting in the Bruce Timm universe of Batman and Superman. We had a whole lot of fun talking about that and its anime roots. The month before that, we covered 1941's Dumbo, a Disney classic, and now, at the end of this month, if you sign up at the $10 level, you will get to hear a lengthy podcast about the Aardman classic Chicken Run from around the same time as Invader ZIM aired. You would really enjoy. I think you're going to love us talking about it. We've always loved our other covering of Aardman stuff, and if you sign up today, you get access to that and the entire back catalog of over 50 episodes of What a Cartoon Movie. I would say we're getting into the 200-hour range just on those, and you get all the $5 stuff that Bob mentioned before. Sign up today. You can see it for yourself at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you sign up, you can use any sort of podcast app you might have to listen to all of our bonus content alongside of your normal podcast. And there is also a Patreon app for any smart device you might have, and that way you can access our bonus content via that app. But either way you do it, it's so easy to access everything waiting for you behind the paywall at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So thanks again for listening. Now, pick up your piggies, grab some Cheetos, and get ready to talk about more Invader ZIM.
from Nickelodeon's animation studio in Hollywood, Nicktoon World News with Henry and June.
Good evening, I'm Henry.
And I'm June. Today, home safety. But first, a look at the brand new Nicktoon, Invader ZIM.
The show stars Zim in the role of Zim, an alien bent on taking over the Earth. To do so, he disguises himself as Zim, an Earthling grade school student.
Creator Jhonen Vasquez based the show on real-life experience.
That's right. He himself was once an Earthling grade school student. And now, home safety with Mr. Foot.
This is Dib, my brother. He thinks he's a paranormal investigator, but he's just abnormal and annoying. This is Zim. He's an alien. He wants to destroy the world or make it stupid or something. Dib wants to save the world. Zim wants to invade it. I just want them both to stay away from me.
Invader ZIM. Next here on Nickelodeon.
Okay, I'm going now.
He's short. He's green. He's back. Invader ZIM.
And we are back, as you just heard the wonderful Zim opening taking us in here. And also I made sure to include a couple of classic Zim commercials for the premiere of the characters just talking to you. Like there's so much. I wonder if they do it as much these days of having the characters host things or just all this extra dialogue done by the voice actors for the commercials.
It feels like that technology is easier to do than ever before. So, but I don't know if I see it. Boy, you mentioned we can't escape 9/11, folks. And looking at the dates on these, so yes. The first one airs on August 24, 2001. The second one airs on August 17th. The ones we're covering today. And I was just thinking, well, where was I? It's like, oh, I just got done with my first semester of college, making new friends. It's a great summer. I just got back from Otakon, this huge anime convention in Baltimore. Everything's looking up. Everything. There's new Zim on TV.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Anime DVDs are on the shelves, and
yeah, it's my last summer before I'm going to start community college the next week. I think after watching Hamstergeddon, I think I'm going to start it the very next week. But yeah, there's a couple more funny things from True Heart's book. He has several things, interesting tidbits about these episodes and the production of them that I put in there. But a funny thing he mentions is that he has a section of here's shit the fan wiki gets wrong. And there's a ton of stuff of just like, yeah, I'm calling you guys out. I'm sure you're all very dedicated Zim fans, but this is wrong.
It's about time. And yeah, this first episode is one of the ones that was cited as this is so fucked up. Along with Zim stealing all of the organs from the kids in his class.
That one, I just saw a clip of that of like the scene of the kid having his eyeballs ripped out and replaced. I was like, how did that get on television?
It's done, I believe, in silhouette, but still. It was shocking then. It's shocking now.
Him fat and full of organs is so funny. But and also True Heart mentioned that another of his coworkers was Daniel Koenig, who is she's a comedy writer, and she was script supervisor in the series, and also she is the daughter of Walter Koenig, Chekhov from Star Trek.
How nice.
Yeah, and her brother is I don't want to call him Boner, but he played Boner on the sitcom.
Boner's the Bone?
Yeah.
There was a character called Boner, and we were supposed to take it seriously.
Yes, yeah, he's no longer with us though. But Daniel Koenig still doing it up there. She's married to comedy podcasting granddaddy Jimmy Pardo.
Really?
That's how I know a lot about the Koenig family. But True Heart,
he married into the Chekhov fortune.
It's funny, yeah. She's, I guess you could call her a nepo baby, but she works very hard in and that True Heart mentions that he was seated next to her in the office, and so he also was a Star Trek fan growing up. He wasn't just doing this to mess with her, but he did buy a big Chekhov figure and put on his desk facing her, And then he said it wasn't funny, though, when Walter Koenig himself came into the office and noticed my toy, and I felt like a big jerk then.
I feel like pretty soon he's going to be the last Star Trek guy around.
The clock's ticking, It's what? So we got George Takei, we got Shatner, and we got Koenig. Man, yeah,
that's it.
No, yeah, Nichelle Nichols is gone too.
Yeah.
Shit.
Well, she's gone.
Yeah, well,
Nimoy's gone.
Oh man, we're going to be talking about a lot of dead people soon enough on Futurama.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're starting with Piggy too because it was the first script Trueheart wrote in the series, and he says that he intentionally got overly ambitious just to show off. He's like, I want to do a complex time travel story for my first script, so everybody can see what a brilliant writer I am.
It's a great, lots of fun gags, but it's fun to think about the time travel in it. Very Futurama-y in terms of how elevated, how high concept it is.
He also jokes that he directly, ripped off Terminator for this, of like, it starts with sending a robot back in time, but then he later goes like, oh, but technically Terminator ripped it off from Harlan Ellison, so Harlan Ellison should be suing me for this. And then he says, I'm just kidding, I love Harlan Ellison.
Yeah, it's like in Terminator, aren't they hunter-killers, and not in this they're hunter-destroyers?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that's a joke about Nickelodeon, you can't say kill or whatever.
Definitely can't say kill,
yeah.
Which, and yet they really got away with something in this. But yeah, so the episode begins with, this actually was slightly confusing to me for a second. You start with 2 title cards in quick succession. You have the name of the Professor Membrane Show, and then you have the actual title of the episode right next to each other. I miss title cards. I'm sad.
Me too.
They're not around.
This opening does feel like it's evidence of a kid's show in that they have to show you an example of what they're going to explore later. Otherwise, you might not get it. It's still fine because it's still funny, but Membrane is not as funny as Zim or Dib or Gurr.
Yeah, actually, and this was a bit he mentioned in the book too, that he was told you need to extra explain time travel to children at the start of this. So that's why it goes into such detail. Though I love the kid, it starts with all these kids screaming in excitement. They're like maniacs in their screaming.
I guess this show really hates children too, it seems. And there seems to be some, like, I kept rewinding it. There's some weird animation thing in which a kid like starts levitating and floating away.
Yes, yeah, man. And also they take high-pitched screaming and they just turn it up as high-pitched as they can to just feel uncomfortable. Yeah, so yes, this kid hates breakfast chunks, which they look to be shredded wheats, like a parody of, everybody's used to mini wheats. They're called mini wheats because shredded wheats used to just be a big chunk of wheat you pour milk on and you smash it up yourself.
Yeah, now machines smash it for us. They took our wheat smashing jobs.
I wonder, can you still find regular shredded wheat anywhere?
I bet there's like a generation of 90-year-olds that has to smash their wheat themselves.
The shredded wheat, like, it was the healthy food back then, so like it wouldn't even be popular now though for health people who want a more like fibrous breakfast cereal, because Kashi has the market cornered on that. You're not buying a big brick of shredded wheat now.
You know what? I'm looking it up, and you can still buy a big brick of wheat.
Wow, still, man.
Yeah.
That kid is right to hate these. And so Professor Membrane, a.k.a. Squidward, explains how you could get rid of breakfast chunks.
Thanks again to Dr. Falke and his miserably failed attempt at a better cold fusion. Now, let's take a question from the audience.
My mom makes me eat breakfast chunks for breakfast, but I hate them. I hate them so much! Could I go back in time and stop them from ever being invented?
I'm glad you asked that. Altering the past to affect the present is theoretically possible. You could prevent Walt and Chunky from ever inventing breakfast chunks by using temporal object replacement technology. See, there's Walt and Chunky in the past, and I guess he worked in a garbage dump or something. And there's a big sack of bran, I guess. Right there's where he gets the idea for breakfast chunks. Oh, look, he's happy. Using a space-time transfer device, you replace an object in the past with an object from the present and stop this moment from ever happening. See, they're the scientists. And they're sending a horrible giant squid into the past.
So all that explanation of what's happening on screen, that was late ADR that they were told to do for more clarity. So him explaining like, well, Neri worked at a garbage dump, I guess. Like that was right before airing.
Okay, it does sound like Professor Membrane is not familiar with the clip.
Yes,
he's just kind of improvising.
I guess he's there. No, I guess he's happy. Like, yeah, it honestly feels more naturalistic than Membrane normally talks. Like he normally is just so big in the way he talks. I'm glad we have a Membrane episode too. He's fun. This was something too that True Heart says they tried to balance correctly with. The executives did not want him to be too mean of a dad, but some of my favorite episodes with him are just where he's like, I have dinner with you kids once a year. Otherwise, I never see you, and you're basically strangers to me.
I forgot about that aspect. Yes, he's just very absentee.
He often will not recognize Dib if he sees him in public. He's like, well, okay, son, here. And he signs his poster. I also do wonder, too, with this cutaway where they show, like, oh, if there's breakfast squids showed up, it might change things in other ways. And then they show a very monkey cheese thing of a giant fish in a bear suit walking through Tokyo. And since this was written before Hamstergeddon, I wonder if this influenced the idea for Hamstergeddon.
Yeah, there's some similar things, including picking up a school bus, but in this footage, a kid drops into the fish's mouth.
And it's fully just swallowed and eaten. He's dead. Like, that squid in the past with Chunky, it kills him. The squid that pops out of the cereal bowl definitely kills that other kid,
It looks like it's about to drown him. It's like pushing his head towards the bowl.
There had to be a storyboard version where he gets literally drowned in the bowl. And so, yes, we hear about the cause and effect of time travel explained in a way a child can understand. And he makes it clear of like, only a moron would do this. Moron. And then we cut to Zim building the exact machine to use it in that exact way, like a moron. And there's also a very fun reveal of you see this flying pig. You think it's a real flying pig, and it's just grr like a child with his toy pig going, woo, woo, woo. It's really cute.
Gurr, some stuff he does reminds me too much of my past, but other times I'm like, he is a cute character who I like.
I hear you on that, Bob. Yeah, there's some self-cringe in this. Yeah,
you kind of need him as a foil. He is sort of, there's a very Pinky and the Brain dynamic between them, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, this definitely comes from the era of smart guy and stupid guy that, Ren and Stimpy into Pinky and the Brain and Dexter's Lab, and now this,
And not to go all Jordan Peterson, but we can't do like a person is stupid humor anymore. There's no dumb, idiot characters anymore.
Yeah.
And maybe we're better off, but it was still kind of fun.
I do miss this kind of guy like Gurr. That Gurr is. I always loved when Gurr would have his moments of competency where his eyes would turn red. He's like, sir, yes, sir. Because, of course, Gurr is made to be like a killer robot. But because the tallest hate Zim, they gave him a stupid robot that's no good at it. And it's just funny that like Zim isn't that smart either, but him being mad at Gurr, always funny.
And I think in these two episodes, he's only in his dog costume briefly once, but that is a great design.
It is so cute.
It's adorable.
Yeah, you want to own that. You want a toy that you can take it on and off of.
And I say this in a complimentary way. It's like a Funko, pre-Funko, because it's sort of anime aesthetic, big head, but very angular. I think it did it better.
Honestly, when you look at Zim with his big head and dot eyes and how big it got with the Hot Topic crowd, Funko, like, they took some inspiration from that.
We need to investigate.
I'm sure you can buy 800 different Zim Funkos now.
Yeah.
So Zim's getting its payday. So yes, we see Zim has some plans, and he's looking back at the past at young Dib and Gaz. Gaz is already sick of her brother when she's like got to be like 2 at best and he's 3, and he's very cute on his big wheel. And yeah, one of my favorite things with Dib is that he is a guy who sees conspiracies in everything. Usually he's wrong, but this time he's right with Zim, but nobody believes him.
This is again more evidence of this being a product of the 90s, but airing in the 2000s. The fun alien conspiracies and world conspiracies. Now that we're living in conspiracies that aren't fun anymore, but They were like X-Files, all that stuff.
Yeah, 9/11 ruined X-Files too. Though also X-Files went on for too long. And
That also happened.
And had to stop filming in Vancouver just thanks to David Duchovny's sex addiction, wanting to.
It cost that city millions.
but yeah, that the X-Files was ruined by it. But this is so in the X-Files like time for sure. Like. So, yes, we see he's about to ride on his bike, and Zim is going to send back a giant, like, tank to shoot a 3-year-old until he's dead. Like, that's his plan.
Very observational. He has a big wheel. I don't know if we're still doing big wheels, but definitely Dib would have a big wheel if this was the early 90s or late 80s.
I wonder if kids still have the big wheels. I wonder. But yes, this is when Zim learns the limits of his time portal.
A hunter-destroyer.
What is it?
A hunter-destroyer.
What is it?
A hunter-destroyer machine, programmed to target the Earth Boy in the past to ensure that he will not be a problem to us in the present.
Wait, if you destroy Dib in the past, then he won't ever be your enemy. Then you won't have to send a robot back to destroy him, and then he will be your enemy, so then you will have to send a robot back!
Now, to unleash screaming temporal doom.
Object not compatible with temporal field.
Oh, not compatible? Is this thing just completely useless? Not compatible.
Object accepted. Temporal displacement in process.
Huh?
I love that excitement of the computer voice, like, I believe every time the computer talks in the show, it is Jhonen Vasquez as a computer, heavily altered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very fun to watch this child be brutalized.
Yes, yeah.
In incredibly cruel ways. This is why it was fun to watch in 2001. Like, how can they do this?
Yeah, it's a show with cartoony violence so much, but this time cartoony violence happens to a 3-year-old, and then you flash forward to be like, no, he has suffered a permanent injury. Like, he is kind of disabled by it.
And the body horror in this episode is genuinely disturbing. There's like a flash, and suddenly Dib's teeth are falling out. He's hooked up to an oxygen machine. He's terrified by it. He doesn't know what's happening.
He's got an ever-growing, like, varicose vein on his head. Yeah, it's... And also, I do like that Gur's head explodes from trying to understand the time paradox, and that Zim doesn't give a shit. Like, he just walks away. Like, the head is just back in the next shot. There's no explanation of that. Also, I really love the posing on now to unleash screaming temporal doom, that it's done in such a way that you're like, hey, remember this shot because it's coming back later.
You hear it like 4 times, I think.
Yes.
I guess in this accident, Dib, child Dib loses his hand.
He smashes his face, and somehow it ripped his hand off in it. It's so shocking. Like, also, it's revealed in the Florpus that this runs in the family because that his dad has at least a robot right arm as well from trying to pet sharks, he says, which that's again a very rando humor thing. Another thing that Trueheart got in his notes about this, though, when showing the damage to Dib, he was told, make sure the augmentations are like sci-fi and cartoony because otherwise it will come off as mocking the disabled.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, boy, the teeth falling out, it sends a shiver up my spine whenever it happens.
Also, I can't quite explain it, but the way Gaz talks about cereal in this is like, man, I feel like so many comedies wrote jokes like this back then. Just the tempo of like, you think you know this, all the cereal did, but you know what, you don't. You just don't. Like, there
was a lot of cereal-based commentary at the time,
and of course it's the Count Chocula box he's got, though obviously not real, but it's definitely a chocolate Dracula is on the cereal box, and so yes, in just an instant he becomes the wrecked Dib with his missing hand and everything.
Sorry, I was just thinking that chocolate Dracula should be the off-brand version of Count Chocula.
And this is also where you first see the appearance of Bloaty's Pizza Hog, which They must love it so much from this first appearance here that later in the season they write an entire episode in Bloaty's Pizza Hog.
Stuff like this is the most charmingly sneering Gen X stuff in the world. Like, this is what we think ads are. Just like a drooling pizza pig shoving shoving products in your face.
I mean, Bloaty's Pizza Hog, too, it's a great parody of Chuck E. Cheese. And, I think Five Nights at Freddy owes Jhonen Vasquez a few bucks as well with that kind of stuff.
They eventually go to one of the restaurants in the show.
Yes, yeah. So I think this is the inspiration for that here. They're like, oh, well, we got this. It's Bloaty's Pizza Hog here, so it can be, honestly, a triggering moment for Dib. Like, this is something, too, that True Heart said looking back on it that he feels weird about now, that this story is that Dib is a very picked-on kid who then is able to eventually take out his aggression on the person, and he's like, boy, this does feel weird after Columbine and 9/11 now, doesn't it? He feels bad justifying this much violence now, I think. But and it's funny, though, too, that he's like, don't we all want to imagine that there's one person who ruined your life, you didn't even realize it all this time, and you could be mad at them? Isn't that fun?
That's convenient.
So yes, Gur, though, is beside himself. I loved it, you. Talking about his pig, but he must go to more work here because this was only the beginning, as Dib is only slightly slowed down by it. They summon a pig out of the ether to send it back, and it replaces a hover helmet that Dib is wearing to spy on the Nosferatu who's living next door.
I really enjoy that even before Zim tampers with Dib in the past, he kind of like hits a tree anyways with the hover helmet.
Right.
It's not very stable. He's kind of like awkwardly rocketing up to the sky.
He's nearly died many other times in his life already, but yes, this is where Dib feels the second effect.
So anyhow, I was thinking I'd try one of Dad's old cloaking jackets and go spy on Zim's house.
Dib, they're gonna show the bats eating a cow.
Whatever. I'm gonna sneak up past those giant gnomes and leave a nasty message note. Leave a nasty note on his door. Dad, if I always had these tubes in my neck.
Hover helmet accident when you were 6. Punched a hole through to the sewer system, don't you remember?
And have my plans always been this lame?
Oh, yeah.
And these visions of pigs in my head. What's with these pigs?
More piggies, Gur! I demand piggies!
See, just that intonation is like, that's just the comedy intonation too many people did, like, I demand more piggies! Like,
that stuff is the stuff that I kind of wince at today, because that kind of, like, these over-the-top declarative things that Zim says, that just kind of became humor for a lot of people.
If you say something like that, I demand more bacon!
Exactly. Yeah.
That's just, that's a joke. I heard a joke because somebody said something in that tone.
I must gorge myself upon bacon!
Yes, God.
We're going to bring up bacon a lot because bacon was just the monkey bacon cheese ninja pirate.
There would not be a nostalgia critic and that entire group of YouTubery if it wasn't for this stuff. Like, a nostalgia critic owes so much to this tone of comedy.
And the phrase on crack.
Oh, God.
Which they couldn't say here, but.
Yes, yeah. But it still is like, I mean, and Gur is just being so epic and for the win with all of his pigs everywhere.
Now, I will be a petted Henry. I think For the Win is more of a late aughts dealy.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. He's.
I blame Garnet Lee. That's a deep cut.
Ooh, yeah. You know what? I gotta put the guilt on him a little bit there.
But no one ever says we are Ghost anymore when they end a podcast. Thank God.
Oh, thank God, man. What a dark. Also, some people are sober on podcasts too now.
Yeah, things have changed for the best on podcasts.
Yeah, but so yes, I also like that Dib is realizing that his plans like suck now, and Gaz always thinks his plans are stupid, but yes, that his espionage plan in a like stealth suit turns into putting a nasty note on his door. That's so great. Like he knows something's wrong, but he can't be sure about it. And also I love the look on Gur's face when he's told like no more, and he shoots all the piggies out of his head, and then he just giggles. Like It's fun, stupid giggling.
Yeah, it's a sweet Pinky in the Brain style relationship in which Zim will abuse his little stupid helper, but then there's a point where he'll feel some pity towards him.
He's like, oh, all right. And he lets him play. So, yes, we see another flashback. This time Dib is chasing after a kid. He's bullying this other kid. You know, he's treating him, and maybe he was a child Sasquatch. I was like, I'm just a regular kid. I just want to eat grubs.
He's just a kid who eats grubs.
A very hairy kid. But yes, this is when things turn even worse for old Dib.
I know you're behind the Piggy, Zim. I don't know how, but I know that it's you. Rubber piggies have ruined my life, and it's all been you.
So close to victory.
Come on, kid. If I lose one more patient today, I'm gonna get written up. Claire. Come on, kid. Claire. Oh, stay with me. Stay with me.
Boy, and then you find out later via dialogue that Dib's skeleton was shattered by that man.
He was crushed by piggies hitting him over and over again. Yeah, that Dib realizes it somehow has to do with Zim because he sees Gur with the pig outside, which it's also always great when Gur just walks around out of his disguise without even thinking about it. But
is this the part where he's just going like doo 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 doo?
Yes.
Again, triggering moment because it's like all the annoying people in my anime club who would just walk around doing that. You're not a cartoon. Shut up.
How many of your club members sang the Doom song?
Oh, God, yes, the Doom song, and also. And I don't think that anyone said Squee on Invader Zim, but there's a book called Squee.
That was the spinoff from Johnny.
But if I see somebody, and they're usually Gen Xers, by the way, or other millennials, if I see them saying like Squee over some news or like I'm squeeing like crazy over here, I have to walk away from my computer or phone. I can't deal with that word.
Because otherwise you're going to reply with like, we're all over 40 now.
Yes.
Stop doing this.
No one is squeeing anymore. We can't do this.
And I mean, Squee was, I think it was supposed to be like ironic. Like, but even the Doom song, which got very popular, I like how it's used in the first episode because it's a time cut for the commercial break. Like he's like, I'm going to do the Doom song now. Doom, 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 doom. Commercial break. Comes back 6 months later. Doom, 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 doom. And Zim is gone insane.
It was used effectively there, yeah.
But yeah, so this was the big problem with standards and practices that they apparently they didn't have, even in the outline phase, they're like, okay. But they're like, wait, you actually kill him? And so the way they convinced standards and practices was they said, well, he's only dead for like 3 seconds and then he's alive again. So that's okay, right? And pre 9/11, that apparently was okay.
A child can die for 3 seconds on Nickelodeon.
And Trueheart credits the Borders for this. He said that an interesting thing that happened on the show was that at the start, they overwrote that. They said like, okay, your script's for an 11-minute cartoon, 13 or 14 pages. And over time, they were like, well, can you make it 12? Can you make it 11? It got to 10 and a half, and Trueheart felt like this is really limiting us. But it was partially because if they overwrote, the Borders would board too much that would then get cut, and so it would be a lot of wasted time. And then if they underwrote it, it at least gave space for the Borders to make new stuff in it. And he credits the Borders for the shots of the flatlining to add extra drama. That was all from the storyboard phase. That was not in his script, and it was really good.
It's I guess it softens the blow because it's not just your heart rate. It's also there's like a history line and also a lifeline line too.
But Zim is a cold bastard. Like he just gets his milkshake. He's like, well, should have seen this was coming when you matched up against me. But yes, this is where, in classic bad dad form, only after his son is dead does Membrane take an interest in Dib and decide he's going to do something for him. And Dib is stronger than ever.
Since my son Gilliton was accidentally crushed by a paramedic in a freak piggy accident, I have created the new Megaboy 3000 fusion-powered titanium exoskeleton. It will give him the strength of 10,000 little boys.
should have reduced him to nothing. What happened? Where did history go wrong?
I like how him not dying is like, oh, that's history going wrong.
It was fun to see Dib get a bit of revenge because even though it's hard to get on anyone's side in the show, there was the feeling of unfairness that Dib never really got to have a victory, you know? And that was the point of the cruelty of the show. But it was fun to see him kind of win, but then they kind of undo it.
Everybody hates him so much, and no one believes him. It is frustrating. In one of the other episodes partnered with these two that we're doing, I did give them a quick watch. One of them is that he's in a bus with all of his classmates, and Zim is sending him to like a room with a moose forever, essentially killing them. And Dib is like, okay, everybody, I need your help to save you. And they're like, shut up, you suck. Like, no one likes him, and it's so mean. So he has to save everybody, and they're all just cruel to him. But that's how it can feel in school. Mm-hmm. Though, yeah, now hearing him say the line of like, you ruined my childhood, it feels different now. That line feels different. It's what people say about a cartoon being different.
That's true, yeah. No one said that about the Florpus movie, I think.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody thought it went too woke or changed things or whatever. Also, it's funny, yeah, the Mega Boy 3000 with a cast member of Mystery Science Theater 3000 writing on this.
Oh, 3000, right.
So, yes, it's he has the strengths of 10,000 little boys, and he is smashing the shit out of the place. Again, I also love his line of, like, you can hide Zim, but you can't hide. It's a good stupid writing.
And it's a nice, fun, I forget the conceit of to go to a secret lab, Zim has to go into the toilet. The toilet's the elevator.
Every time I see him go in and out of the toilet, I chuckle. And also a very Gurr line is they're almost about to die. He's like, yay, we're doomed. Very, very Gurr. And this is where Gurr must lose his final Piggy as Zim takes it away, and it's their only option. It's just so great, too. Zim is throwing piggies into the portal, and every piggy, instead of hurting Dib, it makes him stronger, and he gets more and more weapons.
It adds, more parts to the giant mecha he's in.
Because I guess if it caused a problem for him in the past, then his dad made another alteration, like, oh, then I need another weapon on you. Oh, now you need missiles. Another piggy showed up. And so with one piggy left, Zim has to send a message back to try and prevent all of this from happening. He's getting cornered by Dib. Dib is about to punch him into pace, so Zim is going to die. I mean, it's also just crazy. Like, Dib is tearing apart his secret lab. Like, Dib never gets to go into his secret lab, and now he's ripping it apart. It even feels a little Akira to me, the way it's, like, being torn apart here.
Yeah, again, the anime influence. If there was no anime influence, Dib would not be in this mecha suit.
Absolutely, yeah. And so Zim makes a Hail Mary pass of the pig to send it back in time after he wrote something on it. If you freeze frame it when the thing goes in the portal, this is where you see the first time of the bloody Gurr image.
Oh, I'm not familiar with this, although maybe I was in the past.
Yeah, Google bloody Gurr. You'll see the image. They stuck it into little freeze frames of multiple episodes. It's a menacing looking Gurr with like red substance on him. They wanted it to be one of those, like, subconscious little details kids see. And they didn't sneak it past their Nickelodeon. Like, Nick was aware of it. Obviously, that type of thing wouldn't fly afterwards, but it was meant to be just a joke about subliminal messaging in cartoons.
Boy, I wonder how many creepypastas that spawned.
I would bet millions.
Yeah.
Millions, yeah. But, so yes, after a flash of bloody Gurr, we then get an ending. I don't want to say happy.
And now, Zim, this is for tampering with the past. This is for the pigs. Enjoy your last moments
of privacy. Soon the world will see. Wait a minute. Have I always been like this? Yes, I have, haven't I? My whole life. Good old Dib likes Dib. Hey, wait a minute. Give me hey.
It's like none of it ever happened. Where did the last piggy go?
Now, to unleash screaming temporal doom. Zim! Don't use the time machine. Love, Zim!
Just in case anyone can't read.
Yeah, that's literally what he said in the book of just like, look, we were told kids can't read sometimes, and so you wanted them to be able to know what happened to.
Again, going back to Ren and Stimpy, this reminds me of how so many episodes of theirs would end with them gleefully killing themselves. One of them would be mutilated beyond belief, seemingly no way out of it, or on their way to being killed, you know.
There's multiple episodes of Zim like this, too, yeah. Just, I think of the Baloney one, where it ends with them both transformed into Baloney, and they're Dib and Zim, and there's no coming back from it. Like, but this is so funny that he threw the thing back in time, but it wasn't that he read a note in the past. It's just he lobotomized himself accidentally, so he couldn't do it. It's also funny, too, that even when Dib wins, he's horribly beaten off screen by the guard gnomes.
Right. I forgot that's another thing they do. Like, in his fake house, the gnomes are actually robot security guards.
I love a guard gnome. I mean, that is such a Jhonen Vasquez thing, too, just like, oh, the cute gnomes in suburban housing, they actually have laser eyes and they're going to kill you if you step on his lawn. So yeah, but Dib's back to normal, though horribly beaten, and I guess Zim put his brain back in at some point, let's say. So yes, that was True Heart's first one he wrote. Then the second one we got here is Hamstergeddon.
Sorry. One thing I wanted to add in that the interior of the house, if you look at how it's designed by an alien who doesn't know how humans live. So the toilet is in the kitchen.
Right. Oh, that is such a good joke. I didn't even read that anymore. I'm so used to that visual.
And there's so many let's say what's the They Live style posters throughout this world, and one of the posters in Zim's kitchen just says I eat food.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, and on his front lawn he has the sign of like I heart Earth. Like,
yeah.
Because obviously he's trying very hard to prove he's a human. So yeah, I wonder too if I'm to psychologically deconstruct Jhonen Vasquez, as a Mexican American growing up in the 70s and 80s, maybe he also was treated as a bit unwelcome in places because he had a different name than everybody else.
I can see that. I don't know where did he grow up again?
In I believe Southern California.
Oh, San Jose.
Yeah.
I want to say there's probably a Mexican American community. Probably
I think so,
more than there would be where I grew up for sure.
Yes, yeah. It's easy to forget. Everybody's used to like mall goths. Mall goths aren't just white kids. I mean, he actually later on would say Dib and Gaz are also Mexican American, light skinned Mexican American.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
People, yeah. Though their last name is Membrane, though still, but yeah.
Their mother must be.
They, even in the comics, they apparently never addressed the mom thing. They wanted to keep it a secret. Any fan theories? They're like, oh, so is Dib just a clone of his dad? And they've resisted answering that question either. So yes, Hamstergeddon, the second solo script he wrote, True Heart wrote for the show. It aired first in August 17th, 2001, and they thought everything was going to be fine. Like, oh yeah, show all these buildings destroyed. Everybody will love it.
Pretty soon, Miss Bitters will be wheeling a TV into the classroom.
I should have seen this coming, kids.
We deserved it.
Everything's bad now, just like I like it.
This is a very Matt Groening depiction of school, and having just escaped high school a year prior to this, this was great. Like, I love this depiction of school.
I love how awful Miss Bitters is. I love how uncomfortable existing in the school every kid is. I love the sign of school is just SKOOL.
Yeah.
Everything I love about it. And that Miss Bitters is pretty much, it's not a name. He drew this teacher in Johnny the Homicidal Maniac too.
And doesn't she make insect noises as she moves around?
Yes. She sounds like Zorak, actually. Yeah.
And I like this mislead in which it looks like she's about to blow the children up.
And she's letting all the kids be very uncomfortable of like, oh God. Yeah. And when the countdown clock hits, she presses a button and reveals even when something nice happens to the kids, they have to be menaced with death first. And also it needs to explode and make holes in the wall. But yes, this is when we meet the class pet.
By order of the school board's program to reduce misery among school children, this class is issued one classroom pet, hamster class. Name, Piggy.
Oh, Piggy, so cute. Look at his little pee-pee face. He's like a little fuzzy pee-pee person.
Do I even have to say anything at this point?
If you are referring to my reaction to that hair monster, I can assure you that like the other normal children, I find it...
Cute. The word is cute. Humans think hamsters are cute.
Yes. This cuteness has a curious effect on human beings. Makes them weak.
Weak.
The sound design is so aggressive in this show. Again, to repeat myself, a very 90s Nicktoons thing. One thing I noticed upon this listening is you can hear the hum of the fluorescent lights in the classroom in the background.
Yeah, makes it even more depressing, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So even when something cute appears, everybody goes like, they lose their minds over it. Like, it's like, pee-pee.
And Dib can't even point out that Zim's an alien because nobody cares. So at best he can just snark at him.
Yeah, he's like, what am I? Do I even have to need to say it anymore? Like, come on. And yes, it is spelled P-E-E-P-I. That is how they spell PP.
They're having a lot of fun saying PP in this episode.
How do they get away with that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's also, I guess, the same place where the fake soda in this world is poop. P-O-O-P.
That's right. Hey, if you want kids to like your show, name a character PP.
Yeah, kids will love it. Kids, even to this day, they must still love the word PP.
Absolutely.
Right? It's funny. It's fun. It's like, but yes, maybe that's why they spelled it. Normally, you would think the actual like liquid would be spelled or action P-E-E-P-E-E. So making it P-E-E-P-I, it's like, oh no, that's just his name, P-P. That's all. And it's just fun to hear Richard Horvitz scream "Pee-pee" over and over
Yes.
and over again.
Yeah, I like. There was a similar joke in Rocko's Modern Life where I think it was Heifer and Filbert kept saying "wee wee."
Yeah,
over and over,
that's right.
And they were giggling about it. And I was like, that's as far as it went, but now we have a character called PP.
Yeah, you know, in this, they're not even giggling at it. They're just like, look, we're all just going to say PP 800 times in this. I mean, also, the line, people of Earth, can you resist the hypnotic power of PP?
having fun.
And then he burns everybody alive, like, too. He lights them all on fire. And you know what? This dream basically comes true, except he can't ride PP. And then the opening clip here we get of what a great line. The kid's watching a hamster run on its wheel and saying that's a preview of our nightmarish corporate system.
And this, again, more Gen X commentary, Fight Clubby. We would kill for this wheel to run on these days.
People, they realize, like, you know what? We can just take away the hamster wheel, like, every 6 months from people, and they'll be even more indebted to us.
We can build a wheel that spins by itself.
Yes, yeah. You know what? This wheel, we'll just build the hamster that goes in it, too. We don't got to hire the hamster. What if it was an AI bot taught to be a hamster? I'm sure it could run just the same. So, yes, Dib in the background as Zim is looking at PP. He's suspicious. And we cut to night. Zim has broken into the place and grabs him. You feel a little bad for old PP here. He is really an animal being experimented on.
Well, I'm glad he makes it out okay, according to the last card we see.
Yeah, that's right. He's fine. Yeah, actually, it's funny we're doing this right after we did Dog of Death, and people were talking about how the show did the joke of like, well, yeah, you can do anything to a hamster in a cartoon. Kids don't. Parents don't care. They're not mad. Like, do whatever violence. Just a rat. People expect hamsters to just die in a year or something.
Hey, not on Nickelodeon.
You know, Simpsons killed a lot of hamsters. So, yes, they cut back to school. We then see the Bitters is torturing more children, making her a kid stand on her head for 26 minutes. I love that she's always, like, anytime Dib talks to her, she just sneers at him like, shut the fuck up. Like, how dare you even talk?
It's correct in identifying the teachers hate the little know-it-alls.
Yes, yeah, who always raise their hand and have something to say. But this is when PP is activated.
If you're determined to let the blood rush to your head, you'd better have trained for it.
Miss Bitters, have you noticed anything strange about the hamster? He's 3 times his size and he has that hideous throbbing alien device on his back.
The Earth Boy is trying to interfere. Now is the time to use that PP creature's cuteness to divert attention. This is a little ahead of schedule.
Again, I assume those children are dead, the ones who fell through the floor.
It's like Tremors-style monsters are grabbing them.
Yeah. This also is a big deal on True Heart's book that he mentions, like, the wikis say that we were inspired by Ghostbusters and Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. No, this is obviously Godzilla. Like, come on.
That's when these buildings being knocked over seem more innocent, when you can just do Godzilla parodies.
Yeah, when Godzilla was more talk about, again, 9/11 changing things. You watch that 1998 Godzilla movie that sucks, but it's smashing New York City left and right, and nobody's thinking anything about it.
They're like, how fun.
That's why then the 2014 Godzilla movie, though, all has to be 9/11-y and like, oh man, we'd be running from falling buildings. We're actually pretty scared of it. Like, that's the difference. Americans can watch those Godzilla movies and not have it reflect on, like, say, a cultural memory of being nuked. Unlike for Japanese viewers.
Hey, they made that Rampage movie mysteriously. Are there buildings being knocked down in that? That's the point of the game. I assume not.
Definitely there's some smashing of stuff in there, but I'll admit I've only watched a couple like videos about it. I didn't. That Rampage movie recently came up again because people have a screenshot from that movie next to two screens, one from Jumanji, one from Jumanji 2, and then one also from I believe San Andreas. And they look like they were filmed on the same day that The Rock was like, well, no, I'm just going to wear this exact same outfit. And you just filmed 4 movies around that.
Well, again, we're talking about investigating things. We have to investigate Rampage. No one had talked about that series for 20 years at that point.
How did that happen? I need to look into the production of that. Yeah, maybe that could be a Retronauts commentary. That'd be a deep one.
It would just be us screaming, why?
Why is this happening? It's just a movie about monsters fighting each other. How do you not make that fun and a big hit?
Yeah, I don't understand. They really screwed it up.
And so, yes, as he goes crazy, he's eating up things and getting bigger and bigger. We hear Horvitz screaming, pee-pee, pee-pee, over and over again. He eats a nuclear cooling tower and grows bigger and bigger, too. This is also when Horvitz has the great reaction of, no, don't be silly.
Is that when Dib's asking him anything you want to confess?
Yeah, he's like, no. And we then see a news reporter reporting on it, and he is crushed on air to death. Like, he's definitely dead. Also, a lady is entertained by Pee-Pee picking his teeth with a antenna. She is also killed and stepped on.
A bus is dropped on her.
That's right. Yeah, other people are stepped on. Yeah, a bus crushes her.
And then we have Air Force jets crashing in the street,
which he kicks with his robot leg.
That's cool.
So cool. Yeah, talk about more anime stuff here. But yes, as all of this is happening, Zim isn't enjoying being ignored.
Come here! You must obey me! I am your lord and hamster master! No! Don't fear the Pee-Pee! Fear me! Fear me! Well, he does seem to be destroying the humans, and that is good. Good job, Pee-Pee! I'll just wait until you're all done here. Carry on!
Help! Oh, look at his little feet!
Was that the Frank Conniff man?
That's the Frank Conniff man being crushed. Yeah.
He does appear voicing himself at some point.
Yeah, though that's not him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just became a standard character pack. But I mean, it basically was how, if you ever saw Frank Conniff at a convention or in person, he often was in a black t-shirt and cargo shorts. Mm-hmm. That was, and I feel like the globe on his shirt is even supposed to make one think of the Mystery Science Theater logo.
I think so.
Yeah, But yes, he is crushed to death on screen too, distracted by the cuteness. But yeah, it's so funny. In the middle of this, Zim has to go like, well, he is destroying stuff. I guess that's what I wanted. All right. And he just like walks away.
That's called turning lemons into lemonade.
It's great that he just leaves the story for a little bit here to just hang out. And so then Dib, meanwhile, gets his wish that people listen to him, but he actually doesn't have much helpful to say.
I don't care what the blazes it wants, I just want it stopped.
But, General, I couldn't fire a missile at that furry little face, could you?
No.
Wait! I have important information about Ultra Pee-Pee. You have to listen.
Now let the boy talk.
He's not a normal hamster. He's been altered somehow through alien tampering. Eating makes him larger. The more he eats, the bigger he gets.
Good work, boy. How do we stop him?
I don't know.
Get him out of here!
General, we think we know where he's going!
You can hear him being beaten up by adults.
That's true. They don't even just throw him out. They are beating the shit out of him.
And you see them on top of him, but then they kind of cut away and you only hear the noises.
Right. Man, that's it's also, he's just saying that like how Homer says it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, this I figure it was all of the buildings being smashed down, but also the ineffectual army probably feels like a thing they don't want to show after 9/11.
Especially later when the general says, we got to use this stuff on something.
I know, man. Talk about an end of history joke. It really, look, it is. We have to say it. It is an end of history joke.
This is teetering on the edge of that cliff.
Yeah, that like weeks, man. What a good time it was. We're watching this, and then what? Adult Swim's coming on in like 2 weeks after this.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's where this show should have been, on Adult Swim.
They could not pay for this to save their lives.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Mike Lazo couldn't afford like a show with half its budget. Honestly,
a season of Aqua Teen is one episode of this.
Oh, you're right. If that even. So yes, Gurr, meanwhile, spends this episode like he does a lot of episodes, sitting on a couch eating Cheetos and watching, or eating junk food and watching TV.
They're eating a Fun Dip.
It's so cool. It's so specifically Fun Dip. Which Fun Dip is one of the most insidious sugar delivery systems.
It's candy you eat with candy.
Here's a stick of just pure sugar. Lick it, and then stick it in some flavored sugar and lick it off of that sugar.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't like it.
It was pretty nice. I liked it at a time too. I wouldn't have it now, but yeah, it's I remember a couple times with Fun Dip going like, I'm getting tired of just let's cut out the middleman, just pour the rest in the mouth.
Then I'll eat the stick.
Yeah.
It's becoming lunchtime. I would eat a Lick-O-Made stick right now.
Yeah. See, in my region, it was only Fun Dip. I never saw any Lick-O-Mades. I think it was more in the Ohio region. I think you got both, right?
I think it eventually transformed into Fun Dip.
Okay. I mean, Fun Dip gets the word lick out of your candy title. I can see why they'd want to get away from that.
The lick is implied.
And Zim is just like, just going to watch some TV with him. I have a quick clip of it.
What are you watching?
Angry Monkey?
That's horrible monkey.
Where's Ultra Peepee?
He's working.
And the show is just footage of a gross monkey just staring at the screen.
Talk about humor of the time of like, Angry Monkey Show. Oh, what a gross monkey. Like, just the word monkey is funny. The vision of it, it's funny. People love it. So yes, the only reason Zim is forced to care is because Peepee is about to crush, or I guess I should be calling him Ultra Peepee when he's this big. But in his march towards the factory full of pellets, he's going to crush Zim's house, which is the only reason Zim does anything to slow this down. And I really love his little speech to Peepee here too.
You made me do this, Peepee! I hate to be the bad guy, but you must be disciplined, or you'll never learn!
Hey, Peepee! Check this out!
Never thought I'd see that.
I forgot Dib just walks away after being beaten, and he's not in the crazy bucket yet.
Yeah, so now he can just walk up and be like, well, that's something you don't see every day kind of reaction. These animators, they were asked like, do do a Godzilla thing, and then we're going to have a 3D spaceship shooting with it. So got to implement a bunch of 3D in this as well. I always love the design of the Zim ship is a pretty cool ship.
It is cool, yeah. I don't know if we ever got toys of this. I assume we did later.
There
in
must
life.
have, yeah. And so Zim is having a lot of trouble fighting this. A really good crash landing. When I think of why they took this off after 9/11, it's his flying ship crashing through buildings.
Yeah.
That's probably the main one.
I underlined that in my notes.
But yes, Dib is left with a moral quandary when he sees that Zim is unconscious on the ground.
He's unconscious. Wait, if I capture him now, no one will be able to stop the hamster. But if I let him go to fight Pee-Pee, he's just gonna keep on trying to destroy mankind. This stinks. Okay, so if I save Zim, then he'll move on to destroy mankind and upset the balance of the entire Earth, which is what I've been waiting to finally capture.
Come get me!
Yes, my lord! But if the hamster goes on to save mankind... Wait. No, that's not right. The hamster doesn't... Wait! Zim! Promise me you're on our side this time.
I know not of sides, Earth stink. But just this once I agree with you. The hamster must be stopped.
No! Oh, wait. Yeah. Go on, then.
He was so wrapped up in the logic of what would happen.
I love it. He's just like, no. Oh wait, yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah, it honestly feels like a comic book joke about like in an X-Men comic, a character would discuss the moral quandary for like 5 word balloons.
Yeah.
But because this has to happen in real time, Zim just like wakes up and walks away from him.
And this next joke is so cheap, but it honestly made me laugh because I forgot about it. The ultra pee-pee.
Oh, yes. Yeah, his cool guy strutting bit, ultra pee-pee.
Yeah.
Move. Yeah, actually, I have the little clip of that too.
Yeah. Ultra pee-pee.
Yes, very random. I understand, but it did catch you by surprise.
Now, this is earned randomness, though, too, I learned from the books.
Ooh.
So it is a good scene in the moment, but it wasn't planned. What happened was when Sunwoo sent back the animation, they just wanted, Godzilla stomping around kind of slow and all that. And they said when it came back, it looked like he was like strutting down the street like a cool guy. And they're like, well, you know what? We could send this back, or this is pretty funny. Why don't we just make some music behind it?
Wow, what a save. That saved them, I don't know, thousands of dollars in retakes.
Oh, yeah, and a lot of effort from Sunwoo to have to do it again. So, yeah, it's one of those happy accidents. But, yeah, I love the song. Like, ooh, ultra pee-pee. So, yes, the guy in the tank also can't shoot. This is when he gets crushed again. This is when there's the line like, well, we got to use this for something. Again, a very pre-9/11 joke here.
And more of those declarative statements. The weenie tempts you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So many. It's funny in this, but when I hear it now, I'm like, God, I'm sick of this type of joke in things.
I was partially embarrassed just to quote it, but it was fine in 2001.
It is also funny to say to a character named Pee-Pee, the weenie tempts you.
Yes.
But hot dog humor lets them get away with a lot of stuff like that. And surprisingly, there's not really a pig in this one. I mean, the guinea, I guess he's a hamster. He's sort of like that, but there's usually a pig in most episodes because Vasquez loves drawing pigs.
He does. And yeah, I guess this has PP and Weenie together at last.
So many weenies. So yeah, PP gets big anime speed lines as he's running after it to chase him. And this is when Zim is getting shot at because while they can't shoot at PP, they can shoot at Zim's ship because they're like, oh yeah, we hate this. I also do like how Zim is like, you know what? No, I'm not the hero. I'm just doing this to protect myself. Earth stink. Just what a weird thing to say to Earth stink. This is when Dib gets shoved in the crazy bucket by the army. Apparently the crazy bucket is also from the storyboarders, not in the script. It's very funny. He's in it the rest of the episode.
I do enjoy the idea of a crazy bucket.
And so Zim is failing at shooting at him, and so this is when he ties rockets to PP and shoots him into space. And when I first saw this, I was like, wow, he just killed it. Like that is killing him.
This is a very like Sherry Bobbins ending for this episode.
Yeah, I wonder how influenced by Sherry Bobbins or not this was. But yes, internally they were told kids are going to be really sad that they watch this character die. So their first thing was, well, all right, then we'll write this scene where Zim says he's not actually dead, but we all know the truth in our final clip here.
Why?
Why? Because alien tampering with our life forms is dangerous and ends in pain.
Because when you create a giant monster of doom, no matter how cute, you have to, I don't know. But stop sniveling, little worm monkey. Ultra Pee-Pee will live on, out there, in the stars.
That felt like a big middle finger. The title card that you don't see says, no animated characters were harmed in the filming of this production. You see Ultra Pee-Pee's alive, and all the people that he crushed are hugging him.
And there's hearts everywhere. Everybody's happy. Yeah, it's... so the sense I got from True Heart's book was that, so they write that joke. They're like, okay, this is our cover. Zim will give a speech that says, no, he's fine, kid. He's off in space. Don't be sad. And then in the background, you can obviously see that Pee-Pee crashes and explodes and is dead.
You can kind of hear Pee-Pee screaming.
Yes. So they thought that would be enough. But then when it comes back, Standards and Practice is like, wait a minute. No. You can't. All of these characters obviously died. And they didn't even have... Later, they would come up with the idea that we've seen in so many cartoons of like, somebody clearly is crushed to death, and then the character says, I'm fine. That was what they would do later. But here it was too late for that, so they instead, again, were like, fine, we'll draw an extra fucking drawing over the credits to be like, everybody's fine, kids. Don't write us letters. Don't tell your mommies you saw these characters die.
So, yeah, this probably only aired once?
Yes, until it got put back in the rotation way after the show was canceled.
I guess you couldn't see a room with a moose either because it was attached, and that's another very dark episode.
Yes, yeah, though not in a Line 11 style. And then, they had other episodes in the pipeline that Zim also like blew up buildings a bunch too. There's a future one, I believe, where they have to, in the second season, they have to make it all VR because originally it was going to be more of Zim trashing a city and destroying buildings. And so they're like, no, it's in VR. So he's not destroying real buildings.
Make all those black lines red.
Also in Game Slave 2 also has one of the most obvious note-taking of that too, where the annoying guy named Iggins, who she's chasing after the entire episode, she leaves him in an elevator that then drops, and it hits the ground and explodes, and he's dead. And so they were then told, you can't kill this kid. So at the very end, the last shot is him exploding out of the wreckage like Superman. It goes like, Iggins!
I do remember that. There's like a guitar sting.
Yes, yeah. So that's when they really get in your face. Like, fine, he's not dead.
I like they just let them do whatever they wanted. They have 1 2-second joke at the end to save to undo all the damage to the children.
It did enough in pre 9/11, but after 9/11, even that's not a good enough Band-Aid. And also, it's just a show at the wrong time, unfortunately. Or, hey, maybe the exact right time,
It's the show we needed.
The last bit I'll say from True Art's book is that he says that maybe it was canceled at a better time for it because then it gets to be a show killed too soon, and it lets people want more. It leaves them wanting more, and it builds up its cult-like fandom even more so by being cut down in its prime. So maybe ultimately it ended up being a better thing for the series that it got canceled. But
it basically has as many episodes as an anime series of this era, 27, 26.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I wish they'd at least gotten to finish that second season, but as he says in the book, Sumner Redstone decided that they needed to save an extra like $1,000 or whatever. So too bad.
I think Scott Gardner was tweeting about Sumner Redstone, I believe. He said something along the lines of, if you were working at Viacom and your show got canceled or underpromoted, it was probably because Sumner Redstone needed to give one of his girlfriends $20 million or something like that.
Yes, yeah. Sumner Redstone, like, as disgusting as The Simpsons makes Mr. Burns, Sumner Redstone is like 100 Mr. Burns, like, shoved together. He was a truly disgusting person.
And I thought he never died. He was so evil.
It's incredible he eventually did die. No, Scott Gardner, he's how I learned about the on-the-record testimonials Sumner Redstone gave in court about that involved, including him talking about his diapers. It's disgusting.
I'm reading he died of the cause of death is unknown. What could have happened to this 97-year-old man?
You see, I bet he got the vaccine, man. That's why people are dropping like. Isn't that the worst?
Yeah, I hate seeing that. But I guess, this really brought me back to that time in my life, being angry and excited about television and having this interesting show that had a very negative effect on all of my peers. But going beyond that, it is very worthwhile. Yes, some of it's very dated, but I think I appreciate the bleakness and the spirit and the meanness of it that I wish we could have today in kids' cartoons. I think kids today are missing out, even though they're better off than we were.
On the good side, I think it turned a lot of kids into mall goths and weirdos sooner than they would have, and it gave them a real good outlet. But yeah, oppositely, its influence on so many of the imitators, both in regular television and in online media spaces, is a net negative, I'd say. I'm at least a little tired of it, pretty much.
They would have been influenced by something else.
Yeah, the hacks who do that stuff would have just ripped off a different popular thing. That's all they would have done. So yeah, I guess we shouldn't blame Zim for being the popular thing everybody ripped off, and then it became Rick and Morty after that, and who knows what's next to be the thing that's ripped off for all the comedy online.
Yeah, what could be next?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for some of those guys, it will still be Rick and Morty.
Yes.
Done intentionally. So, oh, I know. It'll be Smiling Friends.
Oh, yeah. Hey, rip that off. It's fine.
It's good for now.
Yes, good for now. But thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to support the show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month. You can get just that, but also access to everything behind that $5 paywall. That includes new monthly episodes of both Talking Futurama and Talking the Hill, as well as access to all of our vast back catalog of miniseries episodes we've done for the past nearly 6 years of the Patreon, covering things like Batman the Animated Series, Mission Hill, and The Critic, and of course all of the back episodes of Talking Futurama and Talking the Hill as well. It's all happening behind the $5 paywall, only at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and there's a $10 level as well. When you sign up for that, you can access all the $5 stuff naturally, but also one extra long podcast once a month, only for patrons at that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon movie podcast, which I'm sure you listeners have at least heard the free version of in our feeds, where we cover an animated feature film very in depth, just like we do Invader Zim or an episode of The Simpsons. Just last week, you heard us talk about Batman Superman World's Finest, the TV movie. The month before that, we did 1941's Dumbo. And this month, we're going back into stop motion with Chicken Run, another hit from actually around the same time as Invader Zim. A real classic that, yes, has Mel Gibson in it. But we're going to have so much fun talking about it. And you can only hear that, though, and all of our previous What a Cartoon movies if you are a $10 and up subscriber. You'd also, if you like all this retro Nick talk, you'd love hearing us talk about the Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling that we did as a movie. And hey, now that we've done regular Invader Zim, maybe Florpus will someday be a movie we talk about as well. But yes, their back catalog of over 50 episodes of What a Cartoon Movie. You can hear everything from Akira to a Goofy movie, Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse to Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. And also, and a big thank you again to ToonJay for picking out this episode, one of our tippity top patrons at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at HENEREYG. We're always tweeting up a storm on there. And if you're following me and Bob on Twitter, you should definitely follow the official Twitter and Instagram account of this podcast network at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter and Instagram will keep you in the loop when new podcasts go live on the free feed on Patreon. If we're doing live shows, any of the cool stuff we're doing, you will know about it if you follow us at Talk Simpsons Pod. And of course, if you're looking for an easy list of all our podcasts and previously produced stuff, head over to TalkingSimpsonsPodcast.com, a great website.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you again next time for an extended free preview of our What a Cartoon movie all about Chicken Run, and we'll see you then.
Chili bean! People of Earth, can you resist the hypnotic power of pee-pee?
Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.